Hello, everybody. You can see my camera because I'm going to be switching my view eventually. So don't mind my setup, which is clearly obvious. I guess I could no, I'm not going to bother moving it out of frame. Hello, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you might be. Hello, hello. Happy Saturday. We're doing Troubleshooting the Tarot. I haven't done one of these in a hot minute, so we're going to be getting into it. Hello, Stardust. Hi, Jenny. Hi, everybody. I see all my badass unicorns. We were hanging out like less than an hour ago, right around an hour ago, doing a test drive of the Marielle, which was so fun and cool. But anyways, I'm still a little bit jazzed from it. But I have had lunch. I did manage to spill on myself, so I totally changed my shirt. In case badass unicorns like, wow, outfit change. That's why. Hello, Eric Nunn. Okay, I'm gonna go quickly post in support of Tarot Facebook group that I'm live now. Okay. There, because I forgot to do that before. Anyway, I am going to be pulling up my badass unicorn questions because I promised them that I would answer their questions first. But in the meantime, let's get settled in. Let me know how you're all doing. I have water so I can hydrate. I have a candle lit. Well, it was lit. Oh, no, it's still lit. It's just getting real low. Wardrobe change is very show busy, isn't it? Yeah, I feel fancy now. But y'all, I have like 12 shirts. So you always see me in the same clothing. If you are new to this series, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about it. So this series was born from the Tarot with Training Wheels series I did some time ago here on the channel. And essentially it was a teach people tarot using a very simplified version of my keyword method. And then throughout that series, when it first released, we would have check-in live streams where people could ask any of their questions about divination, where they're getting stuck. Specifically, those videos were really honed in on the Tarot with Training Wheels method. But the idea was to be able to kind of like head off problems at the past. Like, where are we getting stuck? What do we want to talk about? That kind of thing. And so it was really fun. I think I called them Tarot Frequently Asked Questions, like Tarot FAQs, something like that. Eventually, I landed on Troubleshooting the Tarot, and I started doing these every once in a while. It just has been a hot minute. My goal for these is to, and it doesn't matter. So, okay, let me not interrupt myself. My goal for these is to be able to just kind of like, we can workshop together. I can answer questions. Maybe people in the chat can also offer perspectives of where you're getting stuck. It does not have to be specific to tarot. It should be specific to divination. So tarot, Lenormand, oracle, combinations of all of the above. If I have an answer to share, I will, or something that's worked for me, I will happily share that. I have a 2-camera system so I can show you my table. I have a Rider-Waite-Smith classic deck here, and I also have my giant Buffy tarot because this is just easy to show on camera. It's nice and big. So I put this back in order. So if we can do card comparisons, we can do whatever. Hi again, Sean. I haven't checked my messages if you sent me one, by the way. Anyways, my goal for this is that we are able to just hack whatever. It does not matter if the question has been asked before in a previous live stream. It doesn't matter if I've answered it on a previous video. It doesn't matter. Just hit me with your questions. What I will do, maybe don't start yet though. I'm going to answer my badass unicorns questions first. There's only a couple of those, so we'll do those first. And then I'll start taking questions from you all. I will try to star them as they come up. And we'll go from there. They are giant. Stardust, they are giant. Like, here's a standard tarot. Here's a standard tarot card. Here's a Buffy giant tarot card. Like, they are literally the size of my head. Anyway. Ooh, this is also in order. I think my Rider-Waite-Smith is also in order. So if Buffy becomes difficult, we have another. And I've got decks that are shuffled all around me as well, obviously. So yeah. That's what we're doing here. And then if we come up with any interesting tidbits from these streams, then Peggy may help me timestamp them so I can clip those bits out and share them in videos on the channel. So if you see some like extra bonus videos going up on the channel that are clips from this, that's why, because that's something we're playing with the idea of doing if there's stuff we feel like would be helpful to share. You want to see Buffy next to the mini UJT? I mean, it's out of range. I'm really comfy. But like, here's the Buffy next to the Deviant Moon mini, because that's right here. My UJT is like ahead of me. It's just in front of me on my table. Like, that's the size difference. Yeah. I also have the Buffy mini, but that's in the living room because I use that in one of my BG3 plays. It's one of my characters' decks. Anyways, but it's fun to pull out giant cards. And I used to, in these Troubleshooting the Tarots, borrow Peggy's giant Rider-Waite-Smith she has. But this is my giant deck now. I know, it has us all squirrel. I know, right? It's so fun. Yeah, you don't have to think of questions. If you happen to have questions, and y'all may come up with questions throughout. Badass Unicorns, if you guys come up with a question midstream, go post it in the thing and then just tell me in chat you posted it in the thing and I'll jump in. I'll just throw that in there. No guarantees I will get to everybody's question, but I will do my best. Do you happen to know the name of your nail color? Yes, I do. Hold on. Let me just do this and I'll swap and I'll show you. See? This one is called House of Hades and it's by Mooncat. It's very, very vivid blue. It's like neon. It's awesome. Anyways, there, off topic question answered. Okay, I'm going to start y'all's questions as I spot them, but I'm going to have to toggle over to my other screen because I'm going to answer Badass Unicorns questions real quick, and then I'll hop back and grab your guys's. So I think, like I said, I think I've only got a couple. So let me go into that and grab that question. First question. Okay, so in order. Oh, my computer's fan is like taken off like a rocket ship. Okay, Laura Bondurant is up first. So she says, I'm going to post this in the chat so we can all see it. Okay, so Laura says, when using, it might cut it off, but that's okay. When using non-Waite-Smith decks, my brain always wants to compare the new deck of cards to the Waite-Smith deck, and I lose my ability to read intuitively. So the question is there any suggestions on how to stop mentally comparing the decks? Okay, so here's the thing. First thing, you love my deck wall organizing. Thank you, Blue Sky. So the thing about this, that's okay, you guys, if you don't come up with a question. You don't have to come up with questions. Anyways, okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. I struggle with this as well. Glad it was asked. Okay, cool. So let me go in here and let me just grab what's nearby. Okay, here. I've got the Universal Folk Tarot handy, okay? So this might be a good one because I don't recall the imagery is not very Rider-Waite-Smith focused. So, okay, I'm going to give you the unfortunate answer first, which is that once you sort of memorize what the Rider-Waite-Smith cards look like, let me get my mouse out of the way. Once you sort of memorize what the Rider-Waite-Smith cards look like, it's not like you can turn your brain off. Like, you're going to know those images and you're going to kind of have them sort of memorized. In fact, one of the reasons, and I've talked about this on the channel, one of the reasons that I don't like to read with the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot is because when I'm reading with, say, the Universal Folk Tarot, I have this imagery to work with, and I have the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery in my mind. So I always have both images kind of kicking around in there anyway. So when I'm working with the Rider-Waite-Smith, I feel like I'm working with half of the information. So there's that. If you have a question, throw it in the chat. Do your best to either put the word question in all caps, or if you're a Unicorn fan member, you can use the question emoji that we have for members, and I will try to star them as I see them. Don't be afraid to repeat it if you want to, but I will do my best to grab them from the chat. Okay, so now what we're talking about is, okay, you get really stuck with the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and you always want to compare it to that. So one of the tricks or techniques, that's too Rider-Waite-Smithy. Yeah, we'll use this one. I'm going to even zoom it in a bit so we can see it better. Okay, so one of the tricks that can help with this is to kind of train yourself to take the deck in front of you at face value, is to first pick anything on the card visually that you notice and ask yourself what that could mean in the context of your question. So, for example, the first thing my eye hones in on here in this card is this little creature, which turns out is a jackalope, which is super cute. Or maybe it's these bluebirds up here. This is a terrible deck for me to do this with because I don't know it well enough. Let me grab, like, I find it hard to focus on the symbols. So let me grab a different one. In fact, I've got a good one. I've got a good one to use. So I'm going to get up anyways. I said I was going to try not to get up because I'm lazy, but apparently I'm going to get up anyway. Let me grab and try not to bump my camera, Tarot of Mystical Moments, because this is a really good visually rich deck. Okay. You hit send too fast. That's okay. Yeah, go ahead and add your question whenever. Okay, so I might be too zoomed in now. There. All right. So, Tarot Mystical Moments is great. Perfect. Okay. I don't know why I'm shuffling. It doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. So this is good. I'll zoom in a little. And I want to light some incense, so I'm going to do that too. And star this question from Kamala. Okay. So here's the Nine of Wands. And the first thing I spot are the thorns and the wounds on her chest. So I'm going to ask myself, what do thorns and the wounds on her chest have to do with the question I've just asked? And I do this outside of whatever the card is. So we know that from a rope perspective, this is the Nine of Wands. So if we focus on the title of the card first, your brain is going to recall the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery first. At least that's my experience. If instead you let your eyes slide past the title of the card and look at something in the image that catches your attention and ask yourself how that could apply to your question. So we can do this in real time with by just simply asking a basic question like, what do I need to focus on for the day? Well, I'm going to look at those thorns and those wounds and how close she is sort of cuddling up to this thorn bush or rose bush. And I'm going to maybe say to myself, you know what? Maybe today I need to not cuddle up to the thorns. Maybe today I need to give myself permission to have a little space between myself and the things that aggravate me, that poke at me, or that get under my skin. So now I've got my answer before I have thought about or gone to the title of the card and what I know about that card. So now I can layer that back in if I want to. Now that we know that the Nine of Wands, for example, is a card of sort of holding the line, being protective of what is behind you, and sort of digging in, even though you've taken wounds. There's a sort of stubborn energy to the Nine of Wands that we can lean into and go, okay, that's one way of being, but maybe after so many wounds, we could also like learn our lesson and like back up a bit. Maybe our boundaries need to create some space, right? So that is one way you can do that. And it's helpful when you're working with decks that give you more room from the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery to practice this. Like you saw in the previous example, or like, okay, like look at the Buffy. Now this is very Rider-Waite-Smithish, right? It's not giving me a lot of space between the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and itself for me to be able to practice this technique very easily. So my suggestion is always to first pick a deck that is not cloning. So it's not so close to the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery that you're going to have a hard time like separating the two. So instead, try to practice this technique with decks that really go their own way. So decks that have a lot more going on visually. So let's try another one, for example. So we have the Chariot. The first thing I noticed is that the Chariot is a snail. So yes, I know what the card is. I did notice the title right away. But we have somebody riding a snail. This is somebody who is purpose-driven, but is not concerned with how quickly she gets there. Now I have an answer to my question for the day. What do I need to focus on today? Staying focused, but not worrying about being quick, right? Let's try another one. I'm going to try to cover up the title as we go. Okay, let's look at this one. So here we have somebody with a watering can on her back and a blooming flower in front of her. What do I need to focus on today? Remembering that I have all the tools that I need in order to nurture what I want to grow. So let's say I'm working on a project. I already have the tools I need to make progress on that project. I don't need to keep reaching for more stuff to help me grow in this area, right? Let's try another one. Oh, I didn't even see what the card is. So we'll go back and look at that one in a second. Okay, here's another one. This character has a birdhouse on their head. They're taking care of others, but the leaves and things poking out from this birdhouse are actually covering their own eyes. So they're taking care of others, but perhaps at their own expense, right? So that could be my message for the day. And we have the Two of Swords. So I might not have gotten there if I'd have went right to the Two of Swords. I would have been thinking about decisions and whatnot. Instead, what I'm realizing, so this is where you give yourself permission to read more intuitively with the artwork. Now, when you can see the title, right? If you're not doing this to yourself, right? If you can see the title, then go to the imagery first. What do you get from that? Okay, I get that she's kind of blinded to things because she's so busy focusing on these birds and taking care of them or listening to them. When we weave the Two of Swords into that, we're like, well, the Two of Swords, that's a card about being stuck in decision-making, right? We're blocked. We're stuck in decision-making. And now it's okay to pull that Rider-Waite-Smith imagery in. And you're like, okay, we're usually blindfolded, so we can't see. So we can see that visually depicted on this card. Why are we having such a hard time making this decision? Because we've got all this chitter chatter, other people's opinions, other people's ideas. Maybe these two paths are kind of warring for our attention. What we really need to do is shut all that noise out and tune into our heart and make the decision that is right for us. Does that make sense? So that one that we did before with the watering can was the Page of Pentacles, right? Yay. Yeah. So I try really regularly actually to let my eyes slide past titles. And that really, really helps. Okay. So that was our first badass unicorn question. I'm going to go to my second one. It's long. I'm going to see if I can just copy out the part relevant to the question. And we're going to hop in there. Good news is I have all these decks at my disposal. So let's see. This one is from Becky 1919. Thank you for asking, Becky. Okay. Pros and cons of structured versus unstructured readings, and how do you decide which one to use? Oh, I see. Okay. So I'm going to take the first half of this question and put it in, and then I'm going to paste the second half so you all have all the context, okay? So here's the first part of the question. The second part, okay, so this is Becky saying, hi, Lisa, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the pros and cons of structured versus unstructured readings. And then I'm going to post the second part of her comment, which will probably get broken up across multiple comments. Okay. When you're doing unstructured readings like the monthly members readings, do you follow a loose internal structure, or is each one completely intuitive based on the cards that show up? I sometimes feel limited by structured spreads, but in unstructured readings, I worry my bias takes over. Thank you so much. Okay, so let me pop this part on the chat. Okay, so let me put this, I guess I'll just keep it out for now. It's fine. Okay, so the question has a lot to do with like reading style. When she's talking about structured versus unstructured readings, let me tell you how I'm interpreting the question first so that we're starting from the same kind of contextual base point. So a structured reading is a reading where you maybe have a spread in mind or positions like a Celtic cross or energy obstacle advice, which is my favorite 3 card, or past, present, future, or whatnot. So that is a structured spread. An unstructured spread or an open reading style spread, which is what Becky's asking about, that is what I do in my monthly member readings. So when I read for my members, I end up doing like ballpark 60 readings right now a month on a single day. And so we hang out for like the day. And I pull anywhere from 2 to 3 cards per question. And I just lay them out on the table. And this is my reading. And then I just go. I just start talking and I just read. So that is an unstructured reading. It's an open reading. This is actually a common method with Marseille style decks. There's a whole book by, I believe, Yoav Bendov called The Open Reading. And I don't know, I haven't read it, but I'm assuming it's this kind of thing because I've heard it called that before. But an open reading or an unstructured reading is basically where you just dive in and you start reading without having fixed spread positions. Now, interestingly, and I have this handy because I tried to put all of the things that about the way I read tarot into my book. So I'm going to just show you. If you happen to have a copy of Unlocking the Tarot, there is a section called, where is it? Making connections. No. Is it before or after the reading? Do I remember my own common tarot spreads? Do I remember my own layout in my book? No. Okay, so it must have come before. It's basically, yeah, here it is. Card combinations. Okay. So I call this basically, I go over this in detail in my book, but I call this the 5-step method for reading tarot card combos, because where we get stuck in reading cards in combination is basically how do we do that? How do we do that? And so I basically give 5 steps. So step number 1 is to basically do the math. So this is where you start to add a card to another card. So you concentrate on your question. Now, if you have personalized keywords for your cards, that really, really helps. So for example, let me grab a Rider-Waite-Smith because this will be easier to do with a Rider. It'd be easier actually if I had my keyword deck. Am I tempted to grab it? Yes, I am. I'm going to grab it because it'll make demonstrating this so much easier. But you don't have to have a keyword deck to do this trick. So for unstructured, I guess I should answer the question first. Yes, when there's an unstructured reading, I still have sort of a structure as far as the steps I'll take to get to where I'm going. Those steps do shift and change. I'll lean into different steps depending on the reading and what I'm getting. Some of this is intuitive reading and some of it is other. So this is my personal unlocked deck. So this is a copy of This Might Hurt Tarot, and I have my personal keywords written right on the cards. And I think it's in order. So I'm just going to pull, we're going to shuffle it. Okay, so here's steps for doing the math. Hello. Yeah, that's a good point. Magical Mundane Tarot says that's how I read for clients. Freeform for myself, I tend to use structured spreads. Freeform for clients, and for themselves, they tend to use structured spreads. Okay, so I'm not going to try too hard to get this perfect as far as the shuffle goes, because it doesn't really matter, but okay. It might be a little bit clumped up. We don't care. Okay, so here's doing the math. Okay, now I have ending plus finality. Whoa, okay. All right, let's just, okay. Okay. Nobody wants to see that 2-card combo. Okay, ending plus finality. There's an ending and it's done. Like, we're not revisiting this. I just did the math. Ending plus finality equals we're done, right? Let's do another quick one. So this is wise, cynical, Richard, because this is Richard Gilmore, my King of Pentacles. And then anxiety, right? So we have wise, cynical, and anxiety. Okay. Wisdom is difficult to access when we're too caught up in our heads about what the correct thing is, or when we're too fearful, when we can't see the forest for the trees through the lens of our fear. We have a hard time accessing our inner wisdom. We can become cynical. We can become negative. We can begin to look at the world as if it's out to get us. Let's try another one. Overwhelm for the 8 of Swords, and suspension for the Hanged Man. Okay, we are feeling really stuck, right? We're feeling really, really stuck. The 8 of Pentacles, or the 8 of Swords, excuse me, is very much about that sense of overwhelm. We have so much going on around me that I don't know how to like see the forest for the trees. I'm going to stick with the same metaphor all day, apparently, but I don't know how to like access the answer, the information I'm trying to get. The Hanged Man advises that I slow down. So what is overwhelm plus suspension? Right? I need to pause. I need to take a step back, catch my breath, slow down, know that I don't have to have the answer right freaking now, right? And that's how I can get to my answer. So that is the first step of reading organically without a spread, is first do the math. What does this card plus this card basically mean to you? And that's the first start when you're reading combos, okay? The second step is order. So this is where you decide, and this is what I talk about in the book, right? This is where you kind of decide. I go into obviously much more detail, but you can kind of decide, okay, do I generally tend to, and this is about you asking yourself what works for you. Where does your brain naturally go with direction and the order of the cards laid down, right? So I lay down 3 cards, right? Do I tend naturally to see this as a past to future timeline? As a trajectory, which I know that I do, right? So I'm going to tend to see a flow. Now, it might not be past, present, future, because that's very much a fixed spread, but it might be if I happen to notice anything that shows a flow. For example, here we have a 3, a 9, and a 10. There's a progression going up in the math, right? Of just the numerical cards. So I might notice that and go, okay, this is definitely showing a clear trajectory from time with friends in the 3 of Cups, time alone, and then this deep wisdom we can access in the 10 of Pentacles, right? Or I might look at this. Maybe you're not a past to future person. Maybe you are a inward to outward person. So maybe you tend to see the first card in a 3-card spread as being more about you and your contribution. Maybe you tend to see the cards that bloom out from there as the like chain reaction to that first card. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can start to just notice how you look at the cards, and you can intentionally lean into that as part of reading cards in combination. Okay. Step number 3 is elements. So I'll tend to notice right away, and this is really good to do with a deck that has clear visual identification for which suit you're in. So for this, we're just going to have a humongous pile of decks next to me. This is how I always roll with these. I'll just pull my mini because it's easier. So with Unicorn's Journey Tarot, I baked in some clear visual markers so you'd know which element you're in, right? Yeah, Laurel Rose says, something Tarot Magpie introduced me to was mind map readings where I pull out 4 or 5 cards and then notice connections and mind map it. Yeah, unstructured at first, and then I create the structure. Exactly. So my next step in this process of sort of reading organically is I'll lay some cards down, right? And I'll just, in fact, in this, I'll just do 2 rows of 4. Since it's a mini deck, I can have more cards on the table. Okay. And I'll just take a look and notice. So I can immediately spot the elements in my deck. I know it really well. That also helps, obviously, right? But I've got earth here, here, and here, right? I've got fire, air, and then I've got 3 majors. So for me, I would go, is there a dominant element on the table? Like something that's really taking over? Or is there an element that's missing? And what does that tell me? So for example, I can tell right away there's no cups on the table. How does that absence of emotion or the emotional landscape play into the question, right? Or I'm looking here and going, wow, there's a lot of earth and it's all sort of towards this right side. So we're like really moving in a fixed direction. We're moving toward something heavy, fixed, or stable, because that's how I'm going to tend to see earth energy. So you can add that layer in. Now, the thing about this 5-step system for reading cards in combination is you don't have to do all 5 steps. If you get a good reading at step 1, stop at step 1, you're good. So that you've done the math, you've added the cards together and you're like, I think I kind of know what these are saying. That's good. You're fine. If you want more, you go to that next step, right? I totally closed my book and lost my process. So step 1 is doing the math. Step 2 is the card order. So then you've added that like sort of timeline. For me, it's a timeline. It might be something different for you. You might look at progression of numbers. Are the numbers going up or down? Does that mean anything to you? If it does, add that layer in. Then you go into the elements, or at least I do, right? From the elements, I will then go into the numbers, which I just mentioned. So you can do that as part of the initial timeline, or you can do it here. For example, when I see multiples of a number coming up in an open reading like this, like let's say there's a lot of 5s on the table. Well, I know for me that 5s are disruptive in some way. They shake things up. They come in and they interfere with stability. That's how I see 5s. So if I see a lot of 5s, I know that there's something here about needing to disrupt the status quo or needing to destabilize the energy, or maybe the energy is destabilized and maybe we need to stabilize it. But I know that that 5 energy is contributing, right? Then I will look at directionality. And this is a cool layer, and it's why I put it as the last step, because it is a neat layer, but it is one you can really get in the weeds with. But that's when I'll start to really notice, okay, who's looking where? Okay, this 9 of Earth character is looking back towards the 10 of Swords. So if these were the only 2 cards on the table, right? We have the 10 of Air and the 9 of Earth, or the 10 of Swords and the 9 of Pentacles, depending on how you want to see that, right? So I'm going to go, well, yes, okay, Mystic, our main character here, is doing really well, but she's still haunted by or processing maybe the experience she had in the 10 of Air. So there's a taint to that comfort that she's earned for herself. There's this realization that it came at a cost. And so maybe she's still grappling with that, and that can play into my reading. Does that make sense? So you start to play with how the story is unfolding on the cards in front of you, but you don't have to complicate it. You can literally just start with doing the math. If you have a good keyword or you know what each card is kind of roughly about, you can just add it up. We had that first one, right? That was endings and finality. We had death and the 10 of Swords. Well, that's very clear math, right? There's an ending. It's not something you're going to reverse, right? So when you start to lean into that, you give yourself permission to come up with a reading outside of even what you know each card is supposed to mean. And you sort of free yourself to read in an organic way. I read that way a lot for clients or for other people, especially because it gives me the freedom to sort of move intuitively. My favorite way to do a reading for clients, in fact, when I had time, the client readings were open. One of the most common things I would do whenever I got a custom reading request was do an open style reading. So somebody books me for an 8-card reading. I would or I'll say 6 because I'm laying out 6. I would lay out 6 cards in 2 rows like this. And now I have some really cool things I can play with, right? I can have above and below. So that could be conscious and subconscious. I've got past to future. So I've got this present line. I've got a past line and a future line if I want to, but I don't have to, right? I can also look at who's looking where. I've got 2 directions to work with. I've got a horizontal direction and I've got a vertical direction that I can play with, which is useful, right? Like for example, here, Mystic is healing this little wolf. Her magic is pointed down. So what's under here? Maybe what needs healing, right? So you can start to play with all of that stuff when you have like a little block of cards on the table. But yeah, for member readings, I typically will do 3. And I just sort of automatically go through those steps. Writing them down for the book was my way to be like, what do I do and how do I do it? Oh yeah, this is how I do it. And kind of backwards engineer what I do in order to write it down. But there's so many different ways that you can play with that sort of a thing, right? Oh, and for those of you who are curious about the UJT Mini, next to the, I can't even fit the freaking Buffy on the table when I'm zoomed in. Like, there it is. And then there's like a standard. Like, anyways, okay. I'm easily amused. What can I say? But yeah. So hopefully that was helpful. And don't forget, y'all, just throw your questions in the chat. I've been starring them. So let me hide that. I'm going to do a quick check to make sure there's no more badass unicorn questions, and then we'll get on with the ones that have been put into chat. Okay, so far so good. So let me go over to my starred questions. Okay, Kamala. Great. So my question about the RWS switch of the 8 and 11 compared to the Thoth and Tarot de Marseille. Do you ever mix the decks in a reading, and how does it affect the cards' meanings for you? Okay, there's a few questions in here. So, oh yay, Barb. I did mine in like February because I was stressing out. Okay. So, Thoth and Marseille decks put Justice as number 11 and Strength as number 8, which is where this question comes from. So let me start out with, do I ever mix the decks in a reading, and how does it affect the cards' meanings for you? So mix the cards in a reading, meaning I might not fully actually understand that part of the question. Like, I don't read with Marseille and RWS at the same time, or Thoth and RWS at the same time. I don't actually read with Thoth a lot, but I have studied Thoth a bit. So I have kind of wrapped my head around it, but it is not my favorite system. That could change someday, but in general, there's a case to be made for both numerological associations. And I think the case is pretty strong in both directions. It's never really influenced me one way or the other. And even when I am working numerologically, so let's just pull out Justice and Strength for a minute. Can I? I can. Okay, I guess we'll do that. Okay. So let's say I am thinking about number families. What is that with the blue? This one? This might hurt, the mass market edition. Let's say I want to look at number families. So if we want to think about Strength as number 8, and then we want to think about the 8 of Wands, the 8 of Cups, the 8 of Pentacles, the 8 of Swords, I can make a case for how Strength belongs in that family, but I can also make a case why Justice as number 8 would belong in that family. So I feel like if no matter which one is 8, you can make a case for it numerologically making sense. I see 8s as numbers of stability. It's kind of like stability on stability. So 4 plus 4, 4s are numbers of stability. And when we double that to 8, we get like extra stability, sometimes almost to the point of rigidity. And I can make that case for Strength, but I can also make that case for Justice. And if you think about it, both cards are strong cards, right? So it doesn't really trip me up. I don't really worry about it one way or another. Whatever number is on the card might play into my numerology when I'm reading and I'm looking for repeat numbers, for example. If I see Strength and it's 8 and I see other 8s on the table, I'm going to notice that repeating 8 in my reading. But if Strength was 11, I might not notice it the same way. Or maybe I'll mentally catalog as a 2 and look for other 2s in the reading and look at it that way. So for me, it doesn't really create a sticking point. So I guess my follow-up question back to you, Kamala, would be, what is it about that you might find trips you up? And then maybe we can kind of find a hack for that and address it more directly in that way. So let me know. And we can always come back at that question from a different angle if that's helpful. So again, y'all can throw questions in chat at any point. Don't worry about interrupting. I'll just star them when I see them. And then we can just pop them up as we can. So I got Kamala's question. Let's do Zalizzi's. More often than not, when I get a new deck, I end up shuffling them. And as I'm thinking, the answer usually pops out a flyer. So I'm then finding myself shuffling with the question in mind. Let's see, for each position in a spread until I get a jumper card. I'm wondering if it's best to go intuitively with that moving forward or start trying to just shuffle and pull all of them from the top. better is literally, to me, like, if I'm being really blunt, to me, better is what works. So if shuffling and letting your jumper, the answer just usually pops out. So I'm then finding myself shuffling with the question in mind. Most of us, okay, so let me just think about this for a second. Most of us, I would argue, the standard practice, or the most common practice, I feel like, is to shuffle while thinking of your question. Now, I typically don't get a lot of jumpers. My shuffling method just doesn't give me a lot of jumpers. When I have a jumper, which, by the way, for those of you who are curious, a jumper is when you're shuffling, especially if you're overhand shuffling like this, and then like that, a card flies out. Like, I can make it happen by just being a little bit sloppier with my shuffling. And then you go, okay, well, that feels like the answer to my question, right? Okay, well, if that feels like the answer to your question, frickin' roll with it, especially if you're getting useful answers. The question for me isn't so much what is the correct method as what is the method that seems to give me the useful answer. And a useful answer doesn't have to be the answer you want to hear. But if you find that it often is the answer you want to hear and you're worried about bias, then try changing your method, I would say. So, like, let's say it's like, oh man, I really want these cards to tell me that this guy is the one. Like, he's got to be the one. I need him to be the one. And you pull the Lover's card and you're like, well, I'm good. This method totally works. But then every time that's kind of happening, then you might want to consider shaking things up, trying a different method, and seeing if you still get confirming answers. Does that make sense? So I know I say that a lot. Does that make sense? It's like a tick. It's like a verbal tick. I apologize that it's repetitive. But so I think that the answer to the question isn't which method is right or what you should or shouldn't do, is which method is effective. A lot of people really love looking for jumpers. And that feels like communication with their cards. And they're like, okay, whenever a card jumps out or seems to be sticking out funky, like this one maybe seems to be sticking out funky, you're like, okay, that's my answer, right? So I think that energetically, we typically will try to concentrate on a question while we're reading. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I think it's important to just lean into what works for you without worrying so much about whether it's correct or not. I think we do get hung up on that a lot. Like, am I doing it right? Well, you're doing it right if you're getting useful information. If it's helping you to introspect or grow or do the work you need to do to, like, be your best self, or however you're using tarot, right? If you're getting accurate answers, if you're getting answers that direct you on the path that is right for you in whatever way that looks like, you're good. You're doing it right. I don't know that that's a full answer, but I'm just curious. And something else you can do, try both methods. Ask a question. Next time you have need of a question, ask the question, do your jumper method, and write down what the answer was. Maybe journal about it, right? And then maybe a little bit later in the day, shuffle, pull cards in an intentional way right off the top, lay them out, and answer your question that way and journal about it. And ask yourself if they felt the same, if they both were useful. For a lot of us, I think the method is less important than that we take our time with the cards that we get and really spend time with them. I hope that was helpful. Okay. Priscilla. Ooh, what's a good hack to remember the difference between the 7 of Wands and the 9 of Wands? I feel like sometimes I'm always mixing them up because they're so similar to me in meaning. This is such a good one. And y'all in chat, don't be afraid to weigh in as well. Okay, so let's take a look at these cards. We'll look at them in Buffy. Because not only are they similar in meaning, but they're kind of similar in appearance as well. We'll do the Rider-Waite-Smith. I think it's going to be more helpful to look at them in the Rider-Waite-Smith. Especially because they're in the same dang suit, right? Like, what the heck? You are welcome, Zillizy. Okay, so here's the 7 of Wands. Here's the 9 of Wands. Okay, so let's take a moment first before we do anything else and just, what are some observable differences? Because it doesn't seem like they're all that different. They're both sort of standing up for themselves. They're both protecting something, someone. Couple differences. Number one, this character is fending off 6 other wands coming at him. So he's defending himself against a very real onslaught of some kind, right? So he's standing his ground. He's on the higher ground. We know that that's one of the things definitive about this card. And he's got 6 other wands coming at him. There's actually nothing coming at the 9 of Wands, but he's standing there and he's going to protect his 8 other wands. Right away, there's a discernible difference. There's an external force here. There's no external force here. visibly on the card. So we can right away go, okay, wait, something's different. Something's different, because in the Seven of Wands, there is a defense against something. But in the Nine of Wands, there is this sense of protection, but not necessarily of anything that is real. Doesn't mean that there isn't something real, but we do get a much different thing, a much different vibe. So you can stop there if that's helpful. You can go, okay, yeah, that's good actually. One of them has external impact, the other immediately have external impact. So something else that catches my attention, this card could be defending themselves whether or not they need to. They could be protecting something they don't need to protect. They're also wounded here. They're not wounded here. Here they've taken a head injury, right? So they've taken a beating and they're still standing. They're still holding on. I tend to see the Seven of Wands. In fact, I wonder, I did a whole chapter in my book comparing cards, and I actually wonder if I did these two. Yeah, I have the memory of a goldfish, so I couldn't tell you. I did Five of Wands versus Five of Swords. There were so many I could have done. I had such a list. No, I didn't do this one. I did Two of Wands versus Three of Wands. Okay, so that's number one. Now my keyword, in fact, I'm going to remind myself what my keyword is because it changes, but Seven of Wands to me is usually defense. Yeah, defense for the Seven of Wands. And my Nine of Wands keyword is usually, I want to say tenacity, but I don't know if that's the word I landed on. Ah, look at that, tenacity. It's almost like I wrote this or something. Because for me, the other thing that stands out to me is that this person, this might have just happened. This is a short-term experience, right? It's just happening. It's in the moment. But the Nine of Wands is sort of like the long haul. It's been going on for a while. This person has been having to hold their ground for a while. They're tired, right? They're over it. They don't want to do this anymore, but they are doing it. And so there's a real big difference in longevity, like the timeline involved. When you look at the cards visually, it's clear this person's been here a while. This person might have been here 30 seconds. We don't actually know the story, but in the Nine, we do know the story. So to me, this is more about the holding on and whether that's positive or negative in the situation, whereas this is about the standing up for yourself or taking the high ground or learning how to stand for what you believe in, right? And yes, loving the feedback in the chat on this. Don't worry, Vanier, we haven't been here that long. Yes. Yes, exactly this. Fina, right? This is what I was saying. I think of Seven of Wands as defense and Nine of Wands still standing, persevered. There's perseverance there. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I hope that was helpful in sort of determining the difference. Stardust says, for me in Seven, you've just taken the stand, deciding what's worth fighting for. And in Nine, you're holding ground and you've come through it already. So that's another take you can look at. Yep. Vanier says, Vaniro says, I see the Nine of Wands as the after of the Seven. Like you got everyone to back off your hill, and now at 9, it's like a maintenance action. So that's also very true. If we think about the timeline, what comes between these two? The Eight of Wands, that onslaught, that momentum, that build, right? I show this story-wise. Is my other deck in order? I think it is. I think this UJT standard is in order. Let me show you how I showed this in the story of Unicorn's Journey Tarot, so you can kind of see, because I feel like the storyline of the cards are trying to understand what's going on. So let me show you in, oh my God, the tower of stuff beside me, in my deck, what's happened. So I'm going to show you what's happened. Okay. So this is actually a turning point in Mystic's story. So here's the Seven of Wands. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay. In the Seven of Wands, Mystic came across this group of dark knights and they were coming after this little dragon, this little baby dragon in the dragon egg. And Mystic is like, not today. Not today. So Mystic steps in and casts some protective magic to protect the little baby dragon. Immediately following that, once this altercation is dealt with, Mystic lets the other dragons know, hey, there's some stuff going down. Like, we got to go tell people. Like, there's some things going down. So Mystic and 7 other dragons go flying down to the fire castle, which is at the heart of the fire realm in this deck. They're going to go warn them. But it looks like they're probably a little too late because off in the distance, we can see that there is an army of dark knights that are coming, right? That's actually the Knight of Wands on his way out to get himself in trouble because he doesn't know how to freaking wait for help. But that's a whole other thing. Okay, so they've now had this moment. Okay, there's bad guys in town. We got to go deal with them. So then they're racing to go tell the message. In the 9, now, and it's funny, in mine, we actually do have an external force, but in mine, they have been attacking and Mystic is trying to protect the castle and has cast this defensive shield, but you can see the cracks in it beginning to form. Because as much as Mystic is trying to hold on here, focus, as much as Mystic's trying to hold on here, they can't do it alone for that long. They're getting really tired. They're getting really worn down, right? And then just to finish the story, because I can't help myself, in the 10, Mystic gets some help. And now Mystic's really failing. Their magic is failing. They're drooping. They're falling apart. And now that the King of Wands comes in, the King of Fire comes in and adds his strength to the mix so that they can see this through and they can protect the castle. So when you can start to build an association of like what moves us from one to the other, then things like what Vanero here said makes so much sense, because you're like, yes, of course. We had the altercation in the 7, and in the 9, we're just holding on. We're trying to make it through. And I think that's a really valid perspective. Is there anything else I missed? Yes, another good point, Teresa. Valor with the fight and victory, the win. Yes. Yay. Yeah, I like the story and the progression of the cards. Yeah, this is why I wanted to create a deck that tells a story, because to me, I feel like that's really good for getting to know what the cards mean is through story. My 2 favorite things are narrative or storytelling and keywords. But that's just me. That's what I like. But everybody's different. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful. Answered the question. Priscilla, so yay. Okay, I've got a question from Aurelia. I've got 2 different versions of your question. So I'm going to go with the second one because I'm guessing you reworded it on purpose. And I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody else's questions in chat. Just feel free to keep questions going, guys, and I will star them as we go. So it's okay if I'm already in the middle of answering a different one. Okay, Aurelia says, how do deck pairings work for you? I love this question. Do they come up intuitively or do you consciously choose them? What do they bring to a reading? I would like to read with pairs, but don't reach for them. So definitely, folks in chat, feel free to weigh in on your experiences with pairings. I will share some of my thoughts. So number 1, do I choose them intuitively? Sometimes. I've also been known to literally pull up a spin the wheel and pair decks together that way. I have been known to just pair things on the fly. Behind me, actually, let me just pull my camera up so you can see. On this wall, oh, that side, right here, these are decks with perma pairs. So these are decks I have pre-paired, pre-paired. I have pre-paired them, paired them in advance, because I know that they're pairings that make sense, right? The Chicoli Tarot and the Chicoli Oracles up there. The Everyday Witch Tarot and the Everyday Witch Oracle and the Everyday Witch Familiars Oracle are family up there. Things like that, right? Where it's like, I know I'm going to want to use these cards together. They're meant to go together. I'm creating the perfect pairing for my own deck. I'm creating the Unicorn's Journey Oracle so that I can pair with the Unicorn's Journey Tarot, because I love that when they work together like that. But I think you can pair any combination of decks and get something useful out of it, right? So let me exit solo layout. There we go. Okay, so for example, let's just do a weird pairing. We have, how have I lost an entire deck? Oh, it's in this stack. Let's pull back out Tarot of Mystical Moments, which this is nearby because it's one of my favorites. Okay. And Everyday Witch Tarot. Oh, what happened to the question? Where did it go? Let me put it back up. There we go. Okay. There we go. I don't know how I hit it. Okay. So any deck can pair. Any deck can pair. If you want to. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't pair tarot and tarot. Let me just grab a random oracle. Sure. We'll grab this one. Okay. So here's how I will typically work with a pairing most of the time. I probably got this from my bestie Dawn Michelle, but I've been doing it this way for a long time. So who knows? It's a chicken and egg thing. This is the Amethyst Oracle, which is out of print, but you can get a mini through the Cracked Amethyst Tarot campaign on Kickstarter. Is that Kickstarter open or closed? It might be closed by now. Anyway, this is by Jessica Bott. Okay, so let me just pull a card. So I have Lies as my central card. And then I would pull tarot card to go on either side. So this is typically how I will pair my decks. Or I might do a tarot card in the middle. If I've got like 2 different oracle cards, I might do an oracle to either side of my central tarot card, right? Ooh, interesting. So we have Lies in between the Ace of Pentacles and the King of Cups. So I'm going to ask myself, it's almost like the tarot cards are going to focus on this central theme. So the central theme of my reading now is lies. It's dishonesty. Okay, and we have the Ace of Pentacles. This is about pursuing opportunities, planting new seeds, starting something new, saying yes, right, to something that's going to open a door for us. And then the King of Cups is often about the space we occupy between the mind and the emotions, right? That air of water element of the King of Cups, where we want to find the safe, not the safe space, but the balancing point between logic and emotion. We want to think clearly, but we don't want to lose connection with the heart space. So what can happen here is perhaps this is the ooh shiny squirrely thing that we want to say yes to, but we're not being honest with ourselves about how it's going to affect us either emotionally, or we're not pausing to be smart about it. We might be lying to ourselves about this opportunity. We might be telling ourselves what we want to hear because it feels good, not because it is good. So then I might pull some surrounding things around that, right? Doesn't matter whether the deck aesthetically matches or not, unless that is a part of your practice. And some of us love to see a visually aligned pairing on the table because it just makes it easier to see those cohesive messages, right? But let's pick, oh, y'all, I'm going to make such a mess in here. Let me pick something different. So let's pick, I want to show you guys one that works a little differently. Let me think. Do I have a good one for this? Okay, well, I know. All my oracles are to my right here, so I'm just kind of like perusing. What do I have? What do I want to pull in? Yeah, this is a good one. The Sylvan Kind Oracle. Okay, this actually pairs really beautifully with my deck, so sure, we'll do that. I'm going to use the mini, though, because my mini is shuffled and my standard isn't. Okay, so Sylvan Kind Oracle. Okay, yeah, visually aligned pairing is the best kind of pairing. Yeah, so some people love that, right? I sometimes care, sometimes I don't. I'm a little bit loosey-goosey with it. What else did I miss in the chat? I do matches either intuitively. It's created by the same artist or creator. It's the first I thought of. Color, style, contrast, mood. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because they can work regardless. But okay, so let me pull Sylvan Kind, and I'm just going to pull a card. Okay, so we have aversion. Such a good keyword. Ooh, that's chewy. I like that. Apparently, I'm using chewy as a descriptor today. I don't know where that came from. I used it in my... Oh, I'm throwing cards on the floor. Oh, please. Okay. So let me just shuffle my UJT mini and pull a couple cards to each side. Okay. I don't know why I'm shuffling. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm shuffling anyways. Okay, so we have aversion. And we have the 6 of Earth and the 9 of Waters. Isn't that interesting? So right away, this is going to tie in a previous question, right? I'm doing an open reading. I didn't have fixed spread positions, but I noticed a directionality element that's really interesting. This central character is focused on this snake. That is what they're having an aversion to. The snake is on the right. So the way my brain just processed this particular combination of cards is it went, this is pointing to the aversion on the right, when maybe what needs to be looked at is on the left. What needs to be paid attention to is on the left. Maybe we're so busy trying to avoid this that we're missing this. And how interesting to see the 9 of Water, the 9 of Cups, as the thing where we have an aversion to, right? So it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, right? We have an aversion to happiness. We have an aversion to happiness when on our own. What is it about the 9 of Cups that we are averse to? Where is the aversion coming from? And then you look, my internet is having a moment. Internet, come back. I'm going to give it a second to stabilize. Okay, it's coming back. Okay. So I looked to the back and I go, well, 6 of Earth is about reciprocity. It's about giving and taking. It's about this like exchange of energy. Maybe what we find averse, maybe we're struggling a little bit with finding happiness on our own. Maybe we're struggling a little bit with not needing somebody else to complete us. Maybe we're struggling a bit. Maybe we find the idea of getting to know ourselves and finding that contentment and fulfillment from within. Maybe we find that a little unpleasant. Maybe we find that a little bit scary. We have an aversion to it, right? And so instead, maybe what we need to focus on is how to look back here and think about how connection with others maybe blocks us from what is good for us. How are we leaning too far into that entanglement with others as our source of happiness? Just food for thought, right? Let's do another one just so you can kind of see. So I take the keyword and I let it form the point of the reading. So here we've got breath. Oh, this will be interesting. Yeah, self-sabotage. Exactly. Okay, so here we've got breath, and on one side we have death. Ooh, isn't that interesting? And on the other side we have 8 of fire. So to me, where my brain immediately goes is that in the breath, there is a little death. Let me explain. At the end of the out breath, we are completely emptied, ideally. That's not actually how biologically we breathe, but just roll with me with the analogy, okay? At the end of a breath, we've let go. And there's a pause before we take back in again. And so here I'm like, okay, letting go, that's our death. We need to pause before we just fill that gap immediately with something else, especially the 8 of fire. We might rush to fill. We might be rushing ahead. We might be pouring ourselves into something so that we don't have to sit with the pause in between. We don't have to actually process what has ended or what we've let go of. Instead, we just boom. Is there a little light in the open wood of the tree? Yes, there is. So if you look, see? A little light. This is such a beautiful oracle deck, by the way. It is so well done. There's a strong ecological bent in the guidebook as well. If you want something that addresses that, this is really beautifully done. But I find the keywords really, really good. Also, it pairs beautifully with my deck, which makes me happy. But so that's one way to look at a pairing. But let's pair. Something else you can do is you can use the keywords to create a spread. For example, oh my gosh, I just want to get out all the things. Like, this is so bad. Let me star Coco's question so I don't lose it. And guys, don't be afraid. If you think I've missed your question, just repost it. But okay. Yeah, it's interesting how I can feel the oracle deck breaking in between the tarot and how it's like a bridge giving deeper insight. These pairings feel alive and expansive. Exactly. Exactly. That's why it's so exciting. Okay. I need my Avalon Oracle because I think, unless I've moved it, I may have moved it. Let me see. Because it should be, nope, this isn't going to be it. Nope, that's my Star Dragon. Most of the time I know what's in my bags, but every once in a while I get screwed up. Okay. Is it over here? No. Yes. Here's a pairing. Here's a pairing I have. Okay. Put away my UJT mini briefly. I'm going to end up with a pile of stuff on my bed. I don't care. I love it. Okay, so this is a good example of one that's really good for building spreads out of. So you might have decks like this that have multiple keywords. They may not look like this, but they might have multiple keywords. So this is the Avalon Oracle. Mists of Avalon. It's the Mists of Avalon Oracle. I don't actually use it that much, but it is a perfect pair with the Tarot Arthurian for obvious reasons. Okay, so we're gonna pull some samples. Maybe I should clean up after myself as I go a little bit here. Or we're gonna get out of control real quick. Okay, put that over there. Okay, so let's shuffle. And I'm gonna zoom out a bit for this. That's better. Oh, my incense is already done. Okay. Okay, I got your question. Starry-eyed Hermit. I'll add it to the list. Okay. All right, so I have this card, Galahad. Now, Galahad has 4 keywords on him. Triumph, surrender, courage, and purity, right? Now, this doesn't always work, but if you have a tarot card or if you have an oracle card that has multiple keywords, which I love, I've got Unicorn's Journey Oracle coming out. We'll have a main keyword like theme, and then it will have 3 sub keywords. So you can do this if you want. I'm actually even giving 3 journal prompts per card so that people can build spreads that way, but using an oracle card to create a spread. So I'm looking at these keywords and I'm like, okay, so courage, surrender, triumph, and purity. So I'm going to pick 2 of those keywords and I'm going to build maybe 3. Okay, so I'm going to even though Triumph is up here, I'm gonna break the system a little. Normally I might want to put a card at each of these points to mean each of these positions, but I'm gonna mentally move Triumph because I don't love purity as a keyword. I'm like, I don't really want to pull a card for purity because I don't care if something's pure or not. But I'm gonna put Triumph here. So I'm gonna go, okay, where is surrender needed? Where is surrender needed? Because this keyword is surrender. And I'm gonna pull a card on the left for where is surrender needed. And we have the Eight of Wands. Where is surrender needed? Maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I need to surrender the urge to go quickly, to move fast, to ride the wave, to go with the flow. Maybe I need to slow my roll a little bit. Okay, where is courage needed? Where is courage needed? That's the keyword on the bottom. Where is courage needed? The Six of Pentacles. Oh, see, I gotta move it up. I might be able to change the comment style. Hold on. Let's do this. Let's change it to minimal. I don't know that really... Oh, that's bigger. Maybe I'll go back to that side. That's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. It's easy to read. Let's go back over here. Okay, so I'm just going to, hide briefly so we can see the cards, and then I can bring it back up. So we have courage there. And where we need courage is the six of deniers, or the Six of Pentacles, basically Six of Coins. So courage is needed when it comes to understanding that we have as much to give as to receive. We have to receive as much as we give. Maybe we need a little bit of courage in order to be willing to ask for help. Maybe we're so busy kind of going our own way and rushing through things and trying to prove we got this and go really quick that we miss the opportunity for deeper wisdom, deeper lessons, better outcomes. And so maybe we need some courage in being willing to ask for help when we need it. And then finally, we have, I'm going to use Triumph for the right side because I like that keyword better than purity. So where am I already doing well? Or where could I be guaranteed of success? How can I guarantee my triumph in this situation, whatever the situation is? And I have Temperance that came up in the Triumph position. So now I have a full comprehensive reading, and the spread was created by the Oracle card. So when you have multiple keywords, that's another cool thing that you can do with pairings. So let me put your question back up and make sure I answered it. Wow, I went in the weeds with that. I definitely went off road a little bit in my answer because I got deeper than you actually asked, but hopefully that was still useful in some way. Aurelia says, I think I had struggled with connecting the dots between decks with pairings and not being sure what to look for within two or more decks together. This has helped me know exactly what to look for and has given me ideas I'm going to also put into practice. Oh, you're welcome. Yay. Yeah, Kathy says, a lot of my tarot and oracle pairings are not matching aesthetically, but they just work somehow energetically. Yes, this. I love using the keywords as tarot prompts too. Yay! Fina Rose and Priscilla talked about the familiar field oracle as being good for this. Yeah, so that's great. And you're welcome. Okay, so I should put things away as I go. Be a responsible tarot tuber or something. So yeah, I do like having themed pairings when it comes to, like, for example, obviously the Mist of Avalon is an oracle deck that is based on the Arthurian legends. So I like having these two paired. I think they work really well. I really would love an English version of this, but here's where we are. So it is what it is. Oh yes, okay. Put things back in their bags. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to see if I have another question. Let me just add these to the pile of things to get put away later. Do I want more incense? Maybe not. Yeah, they're really good together. Good together. Oh my God, I'm slurring. So sometimes it'll be thematically, sometimes it'll be visually, but you don't have to pair. And some people don't like pairing. Sometimes pairing is not fun, right? So if it works, if it adds something to your practice, it's something worth keeping. But if it doesn't, don't feel like you have to pair to be like, I don't know, a good tarot reader or cool or something. Like, it doesn't matter. In fact, I regularly, hold on, I'm going to rant for a second. I regularly will, especially if I'm trying to get to know a deck, I will intentionally not pair it. My pairing I'm actually working with this week, I have it in the other room, so I don't have it to show right this minute, but I have I'm working with Lisa Hunt's Fairy Tale Tarot, and then I'm working with Foolish Fish's little folk and fairy tale something. It's like little quotes from fairy tales. that's it. So I've been pairing that. It's a very intuitive combination. But then because I'm studying Brian Froud's Fairies Oracle with my Unicorn Fam channel members, I added that. So my reading that I did last week, I had the fairy tale as the central card because then I could read the story, get so much depth of meaning from the story. And then I had a fairy tale little quote on one side and a Brian Froud Fairies Oracle on the other side. And it actually made a really beautiful family. But I wouldn't have necessarily initially thought to pair them if not for the fact that A, I really wanted to focus on the fairy tale tarot, and B, we were already studying Brian Froud's Fairies Oracle. But the first 2 weeks I worked with the fairy tale tarot, I didn't pair it with anything. I just pulled a card, read the story, maybe pulled 3 cards, read the stories. And so I will change what I'm doing and whether or not I'm pairing based on whether or not it's useful. And when I read for clients, I usually don't pair. I might pull a rune or a card at the beginning to set a tone, or I might pull an oracle card at the end to kind of cap off a reading, but I don't feel the need to do that. I love doing it in my personal practice, but not every time. So that's something to keep in mind too, is that we can sometimes get ourselves locked up, especially with social media. It's really easy to think that pairing is like the thing, like that people do. But I didn't think about pairing my decks for the longest time. I either pulled the tarot or I pulled an oracle, depending on what I was trying to accomplish or what my question was. And I did that for like 15 years. I'm pretty sure the pairing thing started for me when I started exploring TarotTube and social media. So those things changed how I worked with my cards, and I love those changes, but it's not necessary. In fact, nowadays my most common pairing is tarot and dice, D&D dice. So I do the dice casting system that Dawn and I created, and I cast over top of my readings, and that adds so much flavor and context to the card pull that's usually good. 3 tarot cards and dice is so much for me to dig into, and I get such beautiful cohesive layered readings, and I love that. Anyways, I have another question in the queue, I think. Yeah, Ergnon says, I love today's questions as they're mostly non-standard questions. I know, it's great. Yeah, ask whatever. I don't care what y'all ask. If I can't answer it, I'll just tell you, or like somebody else in chat might have an answer. So there's no right or wrong. We're just exploring. Think of this like, the reason I called it Troubleshooting the Tarot is because the idea is like, where are we like confused, stuck, don't feel like we've got a smooth like path ahead of us, etc. Okay, Coco asks, do you have a personal process for how you, yes, I have so many processes. I love to talk about this. Do you have a personal process for how you pick the decks you want to use for the day, week, or month? Personal use, not for clients. So I've got a couple things to point out here. This is, I mean, I love the size of this comment, but it's so huge that I'm going to have to, because it's like going to cover too much of the screen. I got to change it. I like it though. Let's go back to minimal. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Okay, so I've got 2 things that go on. Number 1, this is sort of how I pick for my own personal use. Is there a deck that I've recently gotten that I want to bond with? If the answer to that question is yes, that's going to get priority in the queue, so to speak, of decks I want to spend some dedicated time with. I've been waiting for Lisa Hunt's Fairy Tale Tarot for a long time. I want to take the time to bond with it. So I'm going on my 3rd week working with that tarot in a row because I'm not ready. I don't feel like I've gotten what I need from it yet. I'm still with it. I'm still spending time. And so that's it. If I want to shake things up, and I love this method, I will use a spin the wheel site. Let me tell you what the site is. Oh, it would help if I am in the right thing. I think it's literally called, wheelofnames.com. So this is the one I use. I'll give you guys the website, but it's literally wheelofnames.com. Now you can actually log into this and create an account and save wheels. In fact, I will show you my wheels. I haven't updated it in a minute, but let me get into my wheels and I'll show you what they look like because this is so fun. And I started doing this years ago and I still do it when I want to just shake things up. So let me see which Google account. Yeah, this is right. So let me pull up my Oracle one. This is, again, not up to date, but it's pretty close. I've updated it semi recently. So let me share screen. I guess we don't need the audio. So there. Okay. So let me pull this up. Add to stage. Okay. So there we go. So I literally have taken my spreadsheet of decks I have of oracles, right? And I've loaded them all up in this list. It's so funny because it's like the central image I used in here was Work Your Light Oracle. I haven't had that deck for a long time, but I just haven't changed the central image. But I just paste them in here. I'll click shuffle maybe even a couple times, and then I'll spin the wheel. So what else deck am I working with this week? Let's see. It is Buddha. And then I'll just go here and I'll pull out my tarot one. Give it a little shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. There's the light seers. And I'll spin the wheel. And it looks like I would be working with Goetia Tarot. I don't have this one right now. It's actually in my purgatory. Goetia Tarot, Tarot in Darkness. So I would be pairing the Buddha Doodles with the Goetia Tarot. And this is a fun thing to do. Let me just close that. This is a really fun thing to do if you just want to shake things up, right? You just want a fun, you just want to try something out, or maybe you want to shop your stash. Maybe you've been lately getting the urge to like buy a new deck for like literally no reason, and you're like, you know what, that's not good for me right now. I think I'm going to shop my stash, so I'm going to go spin the wheel, grab a deck at random, and then I'm going to pull a whatever that deck is and work with it for a week, or whatever that pairing is and work with it for the week. I love doing that. I love doing that. So I do that. Yeah, that would have been a wild combo. But the funny thing is, I have found some fun combos that way. And I used to regularly, actually, when I don't have new things coming in, that is usually my go-to, is I'll go spin the wheel. Now, I might spin for the tarot and then pick my own match for it, oracle-wise. I might spin for the oracle and pick what tarot I want to put with it. Or I might spin for both, and whatever I get, and that's what I work with, and just see what happens. It's so fun. And I think things like that allow you to play and experiment. And I think that's one of the ways you can keep your practice fresh. So, yeah. Okay. Let's see what else I have in the queue. Okay. Starry Eyed Hermit says, when doing a lot of readings back to back, how do you keep yourself focused and just defaulting to set meanings? Now, I want to make sure I understand your question, Starry. So, are you saying in your case you would like to remain focused and be able to default to set meanings? Or are you saying, I feel like the way I initially read this is, how do I keep myself focused and not just defaulting to set meanings? Which I think might be what you meant, but I want to make sure I'm answering the right question. I have to say, the spreadsheet/wheel is appealing to my inner nerd in ways I cannot explain. Y'all, if I did not have a spreadsheet on what I own, putting links in YouTube videos would be way harder than it is. And also, it keeps me accountable because I know what I own, which is really great. And it helps me in general. But being able to just copy and paste a list of deck names and throw it into a wheel and then pick something randomly just makes me really happy. I know people have done things where you can write all your decks on pieces of paper and put them in a jar and pull one out at random. You could number them and have a dice roll to decide what you're going to work with. It's so fun. Anyway, okay, back to the question though. So if you're in here starry-eyed, oh yeah, you said not defaulting. Okay, cool. I wanted to make sure I understood. So for me, keeping myself focused and not defaulting. The funny thing is, when I do my member readings, I can be reading for anywhere from 4 to 7 hours, depending on how much I squirrel out and talk about random things, because those are kind of like member hangouts too. But I'm reading really steady, and it's really interesting to see. Once I get into doing readings like that, back to back to back to back to back, I hit what I call a flow state, kind of, or like I get in the flow or the zone or whatever. And I'll notice, because my nose will get itchy and everything becomes even more effortless. And I think actually that for me personally, I find that doing back-to-back readings makes it easier to focus, be in touch with my intuition, not overthink. Because let me tell you, when I sit down for myself and let me just fix my view again. When I sit down for myself and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do a reading. Cool. I'm just going to sit down, pull some cards, okay, here's my reading for the day. And I'm going to stare at it for like a minute. And I'm going to be like, what? Do you guys ever have this experience? You just you pull cards and you look at it and you're like, I don't know. I don't know what it means. I don't know. You know what I mean? But when I'm in the flow, when I've been doing readings for a minute, they come faster and faster. You know why? Because I get I was about to swear. I get the heck out of my own way. I was going to say the F word. I was, there was a little bit of swearing in today's member live. I gave myself permission to just all the language. But when I am doing readings back to back, when I'm going quickly, when I'm not doing whatever, I get out of my own way. And suddenly it's like, I don't have to reach for a meaning. It just comes, right? So bye, Debbie. Let me pull back out the Tarot of Mystical Moments because it's shuffled and it's bigger, so we'll be able to see it better. So like, I find that I'm more likely to default to rote meanings when I'm sitting down just to do like one reading, weirdly. Because you know why? My eyes go right to the title of the card. It's like what we were saying earlier. If I pull 3 cards and I'm tired or I'm unfocused or whatever, like you mentioned, how do I keep my focus? I'll tend to fixate on the titles. What does the Nine of Pentacles mean? What does the Three of Cups mean? What does the Ace of Wands mean? When I'm in the flow, especially when I'm kind of doing a lot of readings, it becomes too, I don't know how to describe it. I just get out of my head as much and I get more into my intuition. I get more into trusting myself, because as a tarot reader, whether you're reading for yourself or for other people, but I find this especially when you're reading for other people, it's really easy to get hung up on what if it's not correct? What if I'm not reading this card the right way? And heaven forbid you're reading for somebody who knows tarot. Then the intimidation level just goes through the roof. You're like, oh my God. Giving yourself permission to get what you get from the card and trust that it's what you need to see in that card in that moment is, I think, the most difficult to learn. But once you learn it, is the most powerful reading technique in your tool belt. Because the moment you begin to trust your instincts and not get in your own way, not worry about whether it's right or not, is the moment you start to give bang on readings over and over and over again, every single time, because you're not getting in your way with your brain. You're letting your brain get out of the way and you're letting your intuition step into the driver's seat. And when you do that, you open up so much ability for interpretation. It is hard, but once you practice it, my internet's hiccuping again. I'm just going to read for a second when my internet comes back. I want to make sure I'm not missing questions too. So I feel like I'm on my soapbox, but here's the trick, okay? The trick is let yourself say the strange thing. Let yourself say the strange thing. And if you're reading for somebody else, give yourself permission to say the strange thing by saying out loud, hey, I don't know if this is going to make any sense to you, but for whatever reason, when I'm looking at this card right now, all I'm thinking is that she needs to close the book and focus on herself. Stop focusing on what the book is telling her and just listen to her own gut. That's not what the Ace of Wands means. I'm sure you can make a case for it. You sat long enough with it. But I gave myself permission to say it by saying, look, I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but this is all I can think of when I look at this card. Or the first thing I notice about this card is this bluebird and the way that she's looking at this girl. Or I'm noticing that she's got grapes on her head. Why the hell is she carrying a bunch of fruit on her head? Why are you carrying all this stuff you don't need? That's the Nine of Pentacles. So some of it is like, let yourself move with the reading. Give yourself permission to say the first thing you think or the first thing that pops into your mind, even if it's wrong, especially if it's wrong. And sometimes when you first start doing that, you feel like a fake. You feel like you're making it up. But then over time you realize, because let me tell you, okay, let me finish my sentence. Over time you realize that that's often where the most powerful readings come from, because you're not overthinking it. You're not letting your logic get in the way of your intuition. Barb says, I always carry fruit on my head. You never know when you're going to need a snack. I know, right? It's actually wildly practical. I hope that makes sense. But a lot of this is really about giving yourself permission. And when I'm doing readings back to back, like in my member readings, what I find is that because I'm reading over and over and over and over again, if I stop to like overthink every card, I'm going to be there 4 times as long, right? So you just, out of a necessity of, I need to keep this moving, you learn to get out of your way. And getting out of your way is awesome. I think that's why I give some of my best readings when I get into that flow state. It often takes me a minute. The first few readings, if you were to go and watch back, if you're a member and you go back and watch back some of those reading streams, you can see it happen. You can see the moment when I move from slower more cerebral readings to more in the flow state readings. They get quicker, they get punchier, they get direct. I have less hesitation. And so you'll notice that that shifts as you do that. And it's really awesome if you can be in a position where you can do that. I learned that skill initially because when I was first reading, sorry, I guess I can do this. When I was first reading for the public, I would host these like tarot and tea events. And at these tarot and tea events, I would do back to back like 10 to 15 minute readings. But here's the thing, my favorite spread is the Celtic Cross. The Celtic Cross is a 10 card spread, but I love the Celtic Cross. So when I was doing these 10 to 15 minute readings back to back, like I had people booked. This wasn't like just stand in line. Like even then that would be pressure, but these were booked. People had time slots. Like I had to stay on track, which means if I wanted to read the Celtic Cross, I had to get through a 10 card Celtic Cross in under 15 minutes. I learned to get the hell out of my own way. Now, I didn't have to do that to myself. Apparently, I'm a glutton for punishment. But the thing is, I love the Celtic Cross. And so I learned how to get in the flow state with the Celtic Cross, doing reading after reading after reading after reading after reading. And what I found was those readings were the readings where I had people going, oh my God, how did you know that? Oh my God. Like, because I would just say stuff. I wouldn't think about it. I would just, what's flowing through me? And I would let it flow through me. Now, not everybody's going to approach tarot that way. Not everybody's going to approach card reading in such a naturally intuitive way. And some of us are going to find that harder than starting with the foundational meaning and building from there. So there's different methods that work for different people. For some folks, it might be easier to start with a rote tarot meaning, something that you've memorized, like a keyword, and lay that as a foundation and then let yourself explore from there. That way you've given yourself the confidence to have that foundational piece and you can just build and build and build on top of that. So I don't know. Again, it's easy for me to get in the weeds with these answers, but I hope that that was helpful. Let me hide that. Okay, let's see. The Celtic Cross is the bane of my existence, but maybe I should give it a better chance. I have a whole video breaking down the Celtic Cross. I think that it doesn't have to be the Celtic Cross. I love it because it covers so many areas. Past, present, future. What's blocking you right now? What's conscious and what's unconscious? What's an external influence and internal influence? What's the key to the outcome? Or sorry, what's the greatest hope and greatest fear? And what's the key to the outcome? Those are your 10 positions. Those are my 10 positions, I should say. And I still don't know if that's something I tweaked years and years and years ago because I learned the Celtic Cross when I was like 20, or if I I don't know if I slowly personalized it, if I tweaked something somewhere, if I read a version. I've never been able to find that version exactly as written anywhere else, but that's how I memorized it. Let me show you. I'll show you. It's super easy. Here. We'll side quest for a minute. Oh, what have I done? No, I don't want that. I want this. There we go. We'll do it with the mini because the mini has room. Okay. So let's do a sample Celtic Cross real fast, and then I'll hop back into questions because this is how I roll. I've got your question, Kathy. I've got your question, Pauline. If I miss your question, repeat it, but it's helpful if you put question in all caps before your question so I make sure I spot it. Just so you all know. Okay, so let's do a quick, let's just do the speedy version of a Celtic Cross. If you've got a deck handy, grab it. Lay this out with me. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Okay. So Celtic Cross is a great general check-in. What's going on? What's the reading going to be about? The first card's going to tell you. Okay. So card number 1, what's the focus of the reading? What's the heart of the issue? What's the central theme that we're addressing today? So that's going to be the first card. And I'm going to do a quick shuffle and then we'll just lay them all out real fast. We'll go through it. We should be able to go through it in like 5-10 minutes. Easy. Okay. So as long as I stay focused. Okay. So I'm going to do a general for, I'm just going to pick a name. Coco, I'm going to do a reading for you. You can say no, but I'm just picking somebody at random. So Coco, you're my volunteer. You're being voluntold unless you say no. Please feel free to say no. And I will try to avoid getting too personal about it. And yes, Ashley, this will be watchable on replay. So unless Coco hollers with a no, I'm going to just do Coco as our sample. Okay. So Coco, let's see what's going on with you. And just feel free to just type in chat if this feels way off base. I'm not going to overthink it. We're just going to see what happens. Okay, what's the reading going to be about? What's the most pressing thing that we need to address right now? We have the Page of Water. Perhaps there's been an issue lately where you are maybe battling a little bit with your relationship with trust. Maybe you want to trust somebody or you're trusting too easily. Maybe that's gotten you in trouble before. Maybe it's just that you want so badly to just be like seen, to be able to let your inner child out and let yourself play. But let's find out. Let's get some more context. So that's essential. What's the heart of the matter? What's blocking that? What is blocking your ability to trust? Well, light is a bonus card. So I'm going to replace that just to make it easy for y'all. Here. Choice. Okay. I'll tell you what this means first, actually, before I just replace it. And then I'm going to continue on so you guys can see it with actual majors. But the light card is all about active energy, positive, leaning into being an active participant in your life. It could be that what's happening and why this like playfulness is being blocked, or where the fear is that you'll get harmed. There's a fear of being hurt, but there's also a desire to trust, a desire to put yourself out there. Anyways. So we have choice. This is also the Lover's card. So this is what's blocking this, for good or for bad. What's in the way, or what is either helping it or hindering it. So what is either helping or hindering this central issue? So choice, this is about commitment. This is about, okay, if I trust, am I locked in? If I say yes to this, am I locked in? Is there fear of being locked in? Because this is about commitment, right? The Lover's card is about saying yes or no to something, but having that thing have a long-term implication. So maybe there's some concern here, and I'll often lay these kind of side by side so you can. I'm gonna see if my internet's okay. Okay, I think it's okay. I think it might have just frozen on my end. Anyway, so we have Page of Cups. This is a card about naivete, about trust, about lightheartedness, about playfulness, about the inner child, about how we engage with the world through the eyes of sort of innocence. But there might be a fear of engaging, of trusting. There might be a little bit of a fear of putting yourself out there, because what if you get locked into something that's bad for you, right? So that's kind of what I feel like is at the heart of the issue. Lying in the unconscious, we have the Emperor. We're really fearing a loss of control here, right? The Emperor is all about what is within your authority, what is within your control. And unconsciously, there's this concern about, what if I lose that sense of control? What if something comes in, or I let somebody or something into my life and I lose that sense of control? There's a deep desire to trust. There's a desire to throw yourself into something, but a fear of loss of control. So human. We all deal with this. What's consciously going on, something you're probably already aware of, is the Empress. You want to have this like relationships that nurture, right? You want to have these heart-centered relationships. You want to feel connected to people, and you want to feel like you can lean in, not only that you can support others, but that you can be supported. But there's, again, I think there's real fear of getting hurt. That's kind of what I'm sensing from all of this. Now, recent past, we have the Nine of Fire. We are tired, okay? We've been putting a lot of work into relationships or into connections, and not always feeling like our energy is getting replenished, right? There's a feeling of like, I'm putting out and putting out and putting out, but I'm not necessarily getting back in. Now, this isn't so much about transactionalness, about like you give and then they give kind of thing. But the Nine of Fire can indicate that you've been pouring a lot of energy into something in the recent past, and haven't always felt like you've been able to kind of keep up with that. There might be a lot of demands on your attention or energy, or you might just feel a little bit depleted, and that could be like interfering with your ability to give right now. But that was in your recent past. So this is a journey just coming to a close. Journey's just beginning. Your upcoming future, near future, is the King of Air. This is what you're moving toward. And the King of Air is all about strategy and logic and sort of thinking things through. It's okay. I want to make sure we can see him. It's okay to bring your heart online, right? It's okay to say, to bring your mind online. Sometimes we think that if we bring our mind into the process, that we're going to completely disconnect from our heart. You can have both. You can stay connected to your heart and still be smart about it. And so I think you're just moving into a phase of your life where you're trying to be a little smarter about who and where you put your energy into. So hopefully that makes sense. Obviously, feel free to let me know if I'm way off base on anything. Okay, internal influences. This is our next card. This is how you're influencing your situation. We have the Eight of Earth. This to me is often about like repeating habits, often things that lead us in the direction of mastery, things that are skillful. But it could be that with the Eight of Earth in the internal influences, that you continue to sort of do the same thing, kind of hoping for different results. And you can eventually build different results. But I'm going to make sure I start this. Okay. But What you don't want to do is bang your head against a wall. So maybe there's some concern that you're banging your head against the wall, right? With the eight of earth. So external influences, we have the hanged one. You're not always in control of other people and what they do. You're stuck waiting. So this is, again, outside influences. These are things you are not in control of, but that are still affecting you. And so here we have this external influence coming in, the hanged one, that's saying, no, you got to just wait for other people to get their shit in order. Sorry, language. You got to wait for other people to do their part. So sometimes you literally have to sit back and go, I've done what I can do. Now I need to let the other person come to the table and contribute. Okay. Next is greatest hope and greatest fear, because they're often the same thing. We have the two of air. This is the do I or don't I card. We don't want to be put into a position where we have to decide in or out. Like the cat at the door, right? The cat is like, scritch, scritch. And you're like, okay, come in. And the cat comes in. And then they just stare there and they meow at you. And then they scritch, scritch to go back out. It's like, make up your damn mind. Let me get to the point. This greatest hope, greatest fear, you want a decision to be made. You want to know, am I all in on this or am I all out of this? Or maybe you want the other person to say, I'm all in or I'm all out. But you're also afraid of that, because either way, it could go a way you don't want it to go. And so while you want to get that point where you can kind of know for sure what's happening, there's also fear that it's not going to be the outcome you want. So let's look at the key to the outcome. Key to the outcome. Notice I didn't say outcome. Key to the outcome. How do we get to where we want to go? How do we get to the point that we need to get to? We have the sun. The sun is about authenticity. We stop pretending we're something and someone we're not. If you want to get to the next stage of whatever this is, wherever you're trying to build, and it feels very relationship oriented with another person, maybe it's several people, maybe it's relationship with a job, with family, etc. But that sun card is a call to strip off your masks, be yourself. You don't have to be a jerk, but be yourself. Because if they cannot accept you as who you actually are, they may not be the right person for you. Period and stop. If you cannot strip back to the part of you that is tender and vulnerable and deserves to be able to trust, if you can't be this person with whoever it is that we're reading about, then they are not right for you. So the call to you is to lean more into your authenticity, strip back, let yourself be seen in the full line of day, give the other person a chance to accept you as you are. Maybe you're so afraid to trust that you're not even waiting to see if they can be trustworthy. You're not putting yourself out there quite enough. Will you risk getting hurt? Yes. You have to decide if that's a risk worth taking or not. But at the end of the day, authenticity is required. Now, I didn't time that, y'all. I didn't time it, which I should have. But do you see what I mean about the Celtic cross? Not only, we don't even need a question. When I did these readings for clients, I didn't even ask a question. Let's talk about what's on your mind and what's going on. Let's get into it. And if it's about work, it's going to come up. If it's about relationships, it's going to come up. What actually needs to be addressed right now will come up. That's just my experience with the Celtic cross. I'm just saying. I do have this question in queue, I think, Faye, so I promise we will get there. But I did start just in case I didn't start it originally. Okay. So I know that was a bit of a side quest, but that's what I break down in my Celtic cross video. So if you want to hear a much more thorough breakdown of how that spread works and how I use it, that's where you can find it. But I break it down in my book, Unlocking the Tarot. I break it down in my Celtic cross video, and I just broke it down for you now. It's actually, people get in their head about the Celtic cross because it seems intimidating, but it's like, so when you start to just like do it and practice it and just see what it does, I feel like it just opens up. I can use the Celtic cross for literally anything. Literally anything. You can ask a question or don't ask a question. Whatever needs to be answered is still going to come through. Anyways, Coco, I hope that was a useful reading for you. Also, I'm sorry, my reading style is a little bit pointed. And if that was too pointed, I apologize. That is definitely my style. Okay. Yeah, Aurelia, exactly. This is the punchline. If you can just like get out of your own way. Don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be complicated. And I think that's the problem with the Celtic cross, is that it's been talked about for so many years. And I just learned it as like an easy spread I could pull. I wanted one spread I could use in any scenario. And the Celtic cross just does that for me. Coco says, I think you've sold me on the Celtic cross. That was so enlightening. Yay. Okay, good. And what matters is that if you got the information you needed out of the reading, obviously. I don't remember how I got on the Celtic cross, but here we are. Okay, so next up on my list is Ha, who asks, I've heard people say they put a deck in their bag just in case, and I don't understand what just in case use cases there are for random tarot pulls. Can anyone explain? obviously y'all in chat, feel free to give your answers to this. Thank you, Priscilla. That's so helpful. Priscilla gave the legit page number for where my Celtic cross breakdown begins. Okay, let me give you okay, I keep one. I keep a copy of my mini in my work bag. Let me give you a just in case scenario that has like legit happened. So, I am somebody who I don't want to say I'm prone to anxiety because that's not quite accurate. And I don't want to minimize other people's experiences with like what I would call actual anxiety. I have had actual anxiety, but I'm not prone to like anxiety, but I am prone to moments of anxiousness, moments of overthinking, for example. And oh, I love you all saying you're going to try the Celtic cross now. Amazing. Yes, it's so, if you just break it down to the simple, right? The simple pieces. Okay, sorry. People are talking about the Celtic cross and I'm getting distracted. So back to your question, huh? Okay, so let's say I'm at work and my boss has just come in. He's going to head to lunch and he just seems like he's in a real bad mood. And I'm like, did I upset him? What do I need to know about this situation? Because it feels like maybe he's mad at me. Now, this is my own shit I'm talking about right now. Sorry for my language again. Man, I'm sweary today. This is my own stuff. And I know it's coming from internal, but I need the sanity check. So I'm going to be like, you know what do I need to know about my boss seeming like he's cranky right now? Like, is it about me? Is it about something else? Like, what do I need to know? And I'm not trying to pry into him. I'm trying to unpack my reaction to maybe his bad mood, right? So I'll whip out my tarot deck and I'll pull a card. Okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to know about this bad mood right now? Okay, I got the Seven of Earth. And the Seven of Earth to me is a card about you're putting work in, but you haven't necessarily seen the results of those efforts. Now I'm going to immediately be able to go, well, gosh, he was like trying to call a bunch of people about like some job he was going to do for them. And they haven't gotten back to him to say whether or not he's won the job. He's bid on it. He doesn't know if he has it yet. And maybe it's just stressing him out. Now, this doesn't even have to be true. I'm going to probably this is not a popular opinion. Okay. This doesn't have to be true. But what I've just done is I've given myself that check-in to logic my way through something I'm experiencing emotionally. I'm having this reaction and I can quickly whip out my cards, pull a card and be like, is this even about me? And I can pull this, right? Is this any different than me pausing to meditate for 5 minutes or do some deep breathing or call a friend? Maybe not, but it serves the same function for me. And it's really simple. That's one way, right? Something else, and I've had this happen more times than I could even begin to tell you. I have a friend going through a hard time, right? Hey, do you want me to pull a couple cards for you? And I can just pull out some cards and help them with their situation. In the beginning, I used to carry cards in my purse because I was learning tarot. And I was the most, oh my God, let me just, for emphasis, I was the most annoying. I had my cards with me no matter where I went. Can I read for you? Can I read for you? Can I read your cards? Can I read your cards? It was the best because it helped me get practice reading for people. And then it became my party trick and people just knew wherever I went, I would have my cards. And it actually got to the point where like people knew I would have my cards and eventually I'd have to stop bringing my cards all the time or that's all I would do. But it was really great just to have the practice. But a simple use case for having cards with you is if you use cards for personal growth or personal understanding or to navigate life because you just find it useful to have something that helps you think about yourself or talk to yourself, especially if you're prone to worry or if maybe you just had a really uncomfortable conversation with a friend. Maybe this happens to me. They dared to use punctuation in a text message and you're like, what's the matter? I did this morning. Okay. My bestie messages me and says good morning with a period. And I'm like, what's wrong? Like, I can be that bitch, okay? Oh my God, am I swearing? I'm so sorry. I can be that girl. So for me, being able to pull a card and be like, hey, everything cool with my bestie? It's good. It just pauses me, slows me down. I don't always think to use it. Wish I used it more often because sometimes I take that reactivity and I direct it at the people I care about because I'm nervous. And that's just kind of how I am. But yes, that's one use case. I also keep a Lenormand deck on me because while I use tarot for myself, personal growth, that kind of stuff, I feel like Lenormand is amazing for why is this person being neurotic right now? And that's the deck I use if I need to know what is going on, not why it's going on. Or what is happening? What do I need to know about a situation? Like Lenormand, if I just need facts, like I don't need emotions. I don't need to like process things. I just need facts. Like, where are my keys? What did I do? I find Lenormand very handy for that. So I keep this deck in my bag at all times. I also have a mini Lenormand, and I actually have a little mini kind of homemade oracle deck that I have that is basically a playing card deck that I've written words on and turned it into my thing that I use to get messages from my guide or from spirit. And that's really helpful if I just need a little bit of like external assistance. And so each of those has a different use case. Do I use them all the time? No. Do I like carrying a ton of stuff in my bag? Yeah. So I'm always going to carry them probably. Anyway, Lisa pulling a card. Why am I swearing so much today? I literally blame the badass unicorns. It's not your all's fault, but like I hung out with my badass unicorns for like almost 3 hours this morning, and we were doing a tarot test drive, and I got very excited about the results of this tarot test drive, and it got me amped, and then I started swearing. Now I'm trying to like still come down a little bit from it. Anyways, I hope that answered your question. I've got a bunch of questions starred. Yeah, Teresa says, I have a deck in car and purse, and if I'm going out of town, I add 2-ish to my luggage. I mean, same. Tarot, Lenormand, and playing cards. Exactly. Like, if this does not jive with you, if you're not somebody that would find that useful, do not feel like you're missing something to not do it. Probably ultimately healthier if you don't need to have a deck with you at all times. But like, I find it really useful because of the way that I work with my cards to have something to kind of talk me through, especially if I end up on my own. Okay. Okay, I've got Lay up next. Hi, are you still here? Hi, Lay. How do you connect with a deck, and how can you tell if you've bonded with it? How does it feel different? Ooh, this is a good question. I connect with a deck usually by working with it myself. Now, I find it helpful, given what I do and how I work with cards. I find it helpful to work with the deck just for myself, and ideally also use it to read for other people if I think it's a deck I'm going to want to use for other people. So there are some decks that like I get it and I know it's going to be just for me. Maybe it's like a deck that deals with like trauma or something. Well, I'm not going to very often want to pull that for somebody else. So I'm going to worry mostly if I can bond with it for me. Do I get something good out of using it? Do I get something good out of working with it? And so the only way I'm going to know that is if I take it with me to do regular daily readings with. So my regular practice and the way it looks right now is that typically I would say I always aim for every day, but I would say more honestly, I probably do readings for myself about 3 times a week, not counting my like sort of spiritual pull, which I usually will do on Sundays or Mondays. But like for like a regular reading, not counting bedtime pulls either, because I like rituals, okay? But my regular pull, let me just switch my camera again. My regular practice would be I always have a deck, and first thing in the morning when I'm kind of drinking my coffee, I'm kind of getting set for the day. Did I just flip a card? I will grab a deck and I'll pull an energy obstacle advice reading for the day. It's that simple. Now, I also now cast dice over it and do all kinds of stuff, but let's keep it simple. So I'll pull a deck. Energy, that's a bonus card again. Energy, obstacle, and advice. What do I need to know today? What's the energy of the day? Oh, burden. It's probably going to feel a little bit, it's going to be a worky day, probably. I'm probably going to have a lot of things I need to do. Okay, fair enough. What's my obstacle? All I want to do is play. We have our enthusiastic, fanatical Page of Wands. All I'm going to want to do is play. I'm going to want to do what like is exciting or fun, but I've got all this stuff to do. So I just need to be aware that my tendency might be to want to play. That's going to get in my way a little bit today. What's my advice? 10 of Cups. Lean into what makes me happy. So maybe I'm going to give myself permission to not try to tackle every single thing on my to-do list today. Maybe I'm going to let myself roll with the play a little bit. Maybe I'm going to try to find that sweet spot between the two. So that's like a daily reading, right? If I'm working with a deck that feels like there's a lot to wrap my head around, like for example, I mentioned I'm working with the Lisa Hunt Fairy Tale Tarot. Well, that one, I want to pull a card and read the fairy tales. So I've been pulling just a single card most days, and then going to the guidebook, reading the fairy tale, reading the message, thinking of how it might apply to my day or what kind of advice it might have for me. And then I move on. And that's cool. And so I will read for myself either energy obstacle advice or some sort of daily pull until I start to feel comfortable with the deck. Some decks, like this one, like took no time at all. For whatever reason, from the moment I pulled it out, I felt like I could just work with it right away. The way I know that I've bonded with a deck is when it doesn't feel like work to use it. That's the easiest way I can think of. So for me, that means I've figured out the way to use it where it doesn't feel like work, or I've gotten to know it well enough that it doesn't feel like work. I don't feel like it's effortful. It just kind of flows. Maybe I give myself permission, as I often do, to when I'm working with that particular deck, I just go to the guidebook, right? I pull the card, I read the guidebook entry, see if anything jumps out at me as a message for my day, and I move on. That could be all I need to do to bond with it. So everybody's going to be different, but my main thing is literally just to use it. And if I'm really trying to bond with it, I'll probably also use it for myself in a month. I'll probably pull it out for member readings for my members that month, so I can really put it through its paces and see how it reads for people. These days, I just kicked off a new series for my Badass Unicorn tier here in the membership, where we called Tarot Test Drive, where we can really hack a deck and see if we can figure out how to make it work. And just did that this morning with Marielle. That's why I'm so excited, because I figured out how Marielle works for me. And so now I feel bonded with it like immediately, because I figured out how it works. So it's going to be different for everybody. My bestie Dawn has a book called, I think it's literally called Connect with your deck, that gives a bunch of bonding exercises that might be useful. Let me actually look that up. What is it called? Connecting with the Tarot, a guide for bonding with your deck. I'll grab you a link. So if you're looking for something that's more guided, this is a great one, because you can just follow this process with whatever deck you want. So I'm totally going to plug her stuff. It's like, why not? Dawn Michelle's bonding book. That probably sounds weird, but I didn't want to type the whole title. So y'all know what I mean, right? Anyway, I hope that was helpful. Okay. Benny says, do you use masculine decks? If so, do you use them like feminine or goddess decks? So it's kind of funny. I'm trying to think. I'm not opposed to masculine decks. So I don't think about, is this masculine or feminine when I use it? But I definitely think about it when I'm reading for someone who feels like that's the energy that they need, if that makes sense. And so I don't like when I look around me and everything seems to have too feminine of a bent, because then it feels like it doesn't pull everybody into its circle, so to speak. I have never sought out a divine masculine deck, for example, because, and this is my experience only, I find it easiest actually to connect with divine masculine energy. In fact, I've always found it easiest to connect with divine masculine energy, to the point where most of my guides and spiritual work have been masculine in nature. In fact, I can't think of a single, well, there's been one guide I worked with who was feminine, but most of my spiritual guides and people that energies that I've worked with are masculine. I've actually had to do a lot of work to embrace and pull in divine feminine energy, which is why I tend to have divine feminine decks, because that's where I needed to do the work. So for me, it wasn't necessary for me to do the work, because I feel like, if anything, when it comes to I don't know, God, if I was to think like goddess versus God duality work, I always lean towards the masculine. So the feminine is to fill that gap. But that's because I had mother wounds and things, and trauma, so much trauma. But yeah, so for me, that's been the case. But I really get excited when I see masculine representation in decks that is unexpected. For example, if you're looking for decks that do this very, very well, Eric Maley's, oh my God, I still don't know how to pronounce his name. Eric Maley's decks, the Inkwitch Tarot, his newest one, the Endless Tarot, has just a beautiful lover's card with 2 men, which I love. I just did a video about it. I have just edited it, but I don't think it's coming out for a little bit. It's scheduled for the channel, but they're Inkwitch Tarot. There's a couple that have really good masculine representation. I like to see masculine energy, whether or not it's men, as long as I feel that masculine energy coming through. I do think it's an area of lack, but I think that's partly a demographical issue. We do have a demographical thing where we just seem to be a lot more female centric, I guess, in this space, which is unfortunate. And it does definitely affect the availability of, I think, what's out there. But it's really great when you see a deck that does that really well. I really like Ciro Marchetti's decks. They feel very balanced. And are something I tend to reach for when I'm reading for people that feel like they need that masculine energy. I'm trying to think if there's any others that come to mind immediately. Eric's stuff for sure. Chiro's stuff for sure, both of which are male creators, which tells you something, right? We need more male creators, male deck creators out there putting their perspective into decks to see more diversity in this area, I think. But yeah. And I get really frustrated. Okay, this is such a good point. Priscilla says, I wish there was more divine masculine decks in the mass market realm. I got really frustrated because you'd have like a goddesses and heroines deck, but the gods and heroes like deck that was meant clearly to be the masculine counterpart would go out of print. Unfortunately, that's probably a result of who's buying what, right? But like, I would be frustrated. It's like if we have a goddess deck, we need an equivalent god deck, but we wouldn't see a lot of that. Oh, James R. Eads stuff is really great too. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's definitely a hole in the market, I think, for sure. Okay. I don't know if that actually answered your question, but let me know. But yeah, I've never felt the need really to like specifically do work in that area because I feel like divine masculine energy comes to me pretty easily. But yeah, okay. So Faye's question was about a deck to work with my book. Okay, so maybe y'all in chat can also give some recommendations. This is the one that I ended up using to unlock for myself. But here's my recommendation. Any deck can work with my book. That's kind of the whole point, right? The reason I unlocked the This Might Hurt Tarot is because this is one of my all-time favorite decks, number one. It's very Rider-Waite Smithy, number two. I had multiple copies of it, number three, which I think is the most punchliney part, right? I know that my bestie Danny, she had an extra prototype copy of the, I want to say it wasn't Thistledown Oracle. It was, oh my gosh, the house one. Why am I drawing a blank? Somebody help me in the chat. The Three Trees Tarot deck in the Abandoned Magical Cottage. Why am I forgetting the name? I know the name. Oh, yes. Levi from Masculine Intuition has great masculine decks too. Totally agree. We don't have enough of it in the mass market, though. I agree. Heartwood. Thank you so much. She used Heartwood. And one of the things she loved about using Heartwood with Unlocking the Tarot is it helped her to bond with that deck. And so what I would say is if there's a deck you have that you don't mind writing on, if you want to write on it. If you don't want to write on it, then it doesn't really matter. But if you've got a deck you don't mind writing on, especially a deck that you would like to bond better with or look at through a new lens, pick a deck that's not so obvious and do that. That's what she did with Heartwood, and she was able to really, really access. And here's the cool part. She picked totally different keywords for that deck than she would have picked if she'd used a different one because she's looking at the imagery in the Heartwood, picking her keywords. So it is an interesting exercise to do with any deck. And then maybe even compare and contrast. So it just depends. I don't have like an absolute use this deck answer because it's going to depend on what you want to accomplish. If what you want to do is just like have a single go-to deck, then I would say pick your favorite Rider-Waite Smith style deck that you're going to find really memorable and that you're going to want to work with and use that. Like I said, This Might Hurt is my favorite. I have 2 indie copies plus this mass market copy. And so it was an easy pick for me to use this to unlock. So hopefully that helps. Oh my gosh, we've already been here almost 2 hours. How did that happen? Okay, Stardust asks, do you physically organize your collection? Kind of. Kind of is the answer to that question. Sort of. Ish. Okay, so I'll see if I can give you a bit of a tour. So over here, these are prepared. We talked about this, PRE-PAIRED. Right in front of me on my reading table, I have another rack right there. Those are some of my favorite for client readings, which I haven't done for a hot minute. I've been doing member readings, but not really client readings for quite a while because I've just been too busy. But those are my favorite client reading decks. So for example, I have This Might Hurt Tarot with a pairing. I have Tarot of Oneness by Robin Voicey with a pairing. I have Tarot of Curious Creatures with a pairing. I have the Unfolding Path Tarot with a pairing. I have the Cosmic Cycles Tarot, and I have the Bonefire Tarot, all of which are favorites for client readings. I'll hang up there. And actually Tarot of Mystical Moments lives up there usually too. So that's what's ahead of me. Now on these walls, okay, we're actually right here out of camera view over here. These are where my oracles live. So I've got 3 of these wall hanging thingies full of oracles over here. And then over here, okay, so the very top rack, which is just out of view, but it's not there. It's like there-ish. up there. There's a third rack. It goes 1, 2, 3. The third rack up there are seasonal decks. So they're high and they're harder to reach. So I have my like Yule and Samhain decks that I tend to pull out at specific times of year live up there. Then I have some peoply decks, some animal decks. Then down here I have more peoply decks. I have kind of a Celtic section. I have a story section. So I have like Alice and Pooh and Buffy and Game of Thrones kind of all together. This rack over here by the Hello Kitty right there, that rack has mostly more deep divey kind of decks. So I have like Tarot of Aphrodite. I have the Journey Tarot. I have the Tarot of Crone Tarot. The Luminous Void, the Voyager Tarot, and then up top I have more of those kinds of things, more of the like decks I want to study, decks that I don't get into as often. So there's kind of a system. Mostly though, over time it gets all messed up and things just end up everywhere, but it kind of starts with a bit of a system, I guess. Yeah, the main reason I can remember most of the time what's in them is because I picked those fabrics specifically or those bags specifically because they match the deck. Like, there's always a reason. There's always a system. I mean, like some of them are really obvious. Like, look at this. Oh, I'm going to throw stuff on the ground. This is this bag and this deck. Like, so obvious. The purple, the red. Like, it's like the perfect match. It literally is the same colors as what you find in the deck. So, like, sometimes it's a color thing, sometimes it's a design thing, but the fabrics are picked because they match the deck. You know? So that makes it easier. But keep in mind, that's because I am spoiled and I live with a bag maker. So I can actually have a unique bag for every deck and I don't have to pay for it. So that's helpful. I mean, I'm sure I pay for it in my own way, but I don't have to pay real cash monies for it, which is convenient for me. Anyway. Tortoiseshell Moon Kathy says, I used to cheat on the Cosmo quiz to get the result I wanted. Mostly as you're going to go far. How do you not do this when reading tarot? Not cherry picking, if that makes sense. No, this makes perfect sense. How do you not give yourself the answer that you want to hear is kind of, I think, what you're getting here. Oh, what pairing do I have with the unfolding path? Sorry, I just didn't want to forget that. I'll come back to this, Kathy, I promise. I have it paired with When My Soul Whispered Oracle, which just pairs beautifully with Unfolding Path. They might as well be a perfect pair at this point. Yeah, they just look great together. Should make sure I didn't miss anything else. Okay, so back to this though. How do you not cherry pick? Some of this is knowing when I'm likely to do that from a bias perspective and when I'm not. If I have a situation going on in my life where I know I only want the answer I want to hear, then I will do multiple things. I will pick a deck that I know will not sugarcoat things and will tell me how it is so that it's harder for me to cherry pick what I want to hear. So this is one of the reasons why I'm just going to pull this one because it's handy. This is one of the reasons why I love the Deviant Moon Tarot so much, because it seems to do this brilliant job of showing the shadowy version of what a card could mean, just like kind of automatically, or at least when I look at it, that's what I see. So for example, let me find a really good one. Oh, here's a perfect one. Okay, this is the Five of Cups. So this character is literally plugging their ears, right? They're getting like berated. Like, who am I in this card, right? Am I plugging my ears and not listening? Am I the one trying to force healing where healing is not coming easy? That's an example, right? Or maybe it's the Seven of Swords. What shortcut am I taking and what danger is it putting me in? Like, so I like decks that will like call me out because I really enjoy, I know these are really little. I really enjoy having cards that will push past my biases. I find that really, really helpful. And so for me, if I'm reading about something, especially where I know I may need to hear something I don't want to hear, I will pull a deck that is more likely to give it to me straight. I will also regularly read the guidebook for what I'm reading for myself. That's another good way to make sure you're not cherry picking. Again, if you're reading for yourself. If you're reading for somebody else, if you have opinions, that's a little bit more challenging. And it's actually how I knew tarot worked, believe it or not, because I was reading for somebody. I did not like the person that I tell this story all the time, so I probably repeated it, but I had a friend who was with somebody I didn't like. I thought this person was bad for them. I did not like this person. And they came to me for a relationship reading. Now was my big chance, y'all. It was my big chance. And the cards that I pulled were very obviously saying she needed to give it more time with this person. She was having some stress. She was tempted to just walk. The person I am wanted so bad to see that answer on the cards, and that's not what I saw. So I could have forced it, you know what I mean? But I would have known what I was doing. And I think the thing is that if you're forcing it, if you're just cherry picking, you kind of know that's what you're doing. If you're self-aware, you will know. If you're not sure, especially if you're reading for yourself, fact check yourself in the guidebook. Go see what the creator says. Does that jive with your interpretation? Or is it taking you in a different direction? I find it difficult to read super intuitively for myself. So if I'm needing some guidance on a situation that I know I'm a little bit got my blinders on, or I don't want to see the truth, I will go to somebody else. I'll go to a friend. I'll go to Peggy, or I'll go to, even if I just go to a guidebook and I'll just read the reading in the guidebook verbatim and take that as my message instead of trying to insert my intuition into it and coloring the reading. So that is how I handle it. But yeah, that helps me to navigate that. But the way that I know typically if I am cherry picking or not, because that kind of feels like it's at the heart of the question, is like, how do you know if you're doing that or not? If you ever get answers that aren't in line with your personal opinion, then you know you're not cherry picking, you know? So I feel like some of it is just practice and learning to trust the messages that come through. And I feel like you'll feel it on a gut level. I don't know how helpful that is, but if anybody in the chat has other feedback on that or how you can tell if you're cherry picking or not, I think mostly we're just scared we're cherry picking. I think a lot of that is that voice in our head that feels like a fraud. Like, am I just making all this up? That's a normal fear to have as a tarot reader. Is like, am I just pulling this out of my butt? Like, am I faking this? So my trick for that is trust my gut, say the thing that comes out, you know, that comes to mind when I pull a card, say that thing, let that be the answer, you know? But I find that for me, if I'm feeling a little bit biased, I will go right to the guidebook and I will just let that be my answer. And that really helps me. So I use guidebooks a lot when I read for myself. I get messages from guidebooks that I don't think I'd get if I was trying to just intuit for myself. Because I know I have blind spots. That's why I use tarot. So I want the guidebook. Or if the art is not clearly giving me a message, I go right to the book. So yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Do I incorporate Oracle into the Celtic Cross? No. Not typically. If I'm going to use Oracle with, like, if I pull a Celtic Cross, I might pull an Oracle card at the end, like icing on the cake, put a bow on the package, you know, like a little, like, nice little cap on the reading. And that, for that, I would pull like an affirmative Oracle, something that's going to give you a positive message or some advice, something that you can take with you and chew on for a bit. Cards like any affirmative decks are great for that. Like affirmation decks are great for that. Or, decks that kind of pose questions or give specific types of advice are really useful for that. I wouldn't pull just like a random oracle that has both positive and shadowy meanings in it for that necessarily. But if I did want to do that, I would do that at the beginning of the reading. So for example, I might pull an oracle or a rune or something at the beginning of a reading before I pull tarot cards to set the tone. Let me show you what that might look like. Because I have a rune set. Did I put them away already? I had them out earlier. Well, I'll pull a different rune set. Okay, so let's say I'm reading for a client. And I'm like, okay, I used to do this all the time. Okay, let's see. What's the overall theme we're going to be dealing with today? What is that? Yara? That's Yara. Okay. Oh, it would help if you guys could see it. So that's Yara. Yara is harvest, right? So, okay. This tells me that the overall theme of the reading is going to be about harvest. What can they take out of a particular situation? What is the gold they can mine from what they're going through? So then when I pull cards, I might pull like 3 cards. 2 of Wands, we have to do some possibility, some planning. We have to open ourselves up to new things. Tyranny, we're dealing with some BS, right? And commitment. So then I might go, okay, you're at a bit of a crossroads, right? Like maybe there's been a situation where you're having to like chart a new course. Maybe you've been thrown off. Maybe life's thrown some instability your way. It looks like maybe you've gotten the short end of the stick recently, right? You've got the 5 of Swords right at the center. There's like this disruption. So, okay, now is the time to go back to the drawing board, carve out where you could head in your life. Where could you go? And commit to a new path. That is how you're going to mine the gold from this situation. That is how you're going to come up with a good harvest. So now I've used the rune or the oracle card or whatever to set the tone for the reading. What is the overarching theme? And then that way, when I pull cards, I now have context. So I like doing that kind of a thing. And I'll do that with a Celtic cross. But typically, I would say no. Celtic cross is a Celtic cross. I just use a single tarot. I don't make it complicated. And I mean, I've already got 10 positions. I mean, I'm covered. So. Oh, that's perfect, Amber. Yay. Okay. Martina asks, I'm just a beginner and have a self-trust issue. I even doubt if I've drawn correct cards if it's not a jumper. I don't know if this was in response to something. I started probably because I wanted to respond to it. This is super common. Most of us have this feeling. Self-trust is the biggest barrier that is between you and your intuition because we don't know if it's real or not. We don't know if we can trust the voice. And all I can tell you is practice trusting the voice and see what happens. Don't be afraid to admit to yourself or somebody you're reading for that you could have it wrong. That has given me so much permission to take chances. So much permission. I do this. I have done this in client readings so many times. Look, I could be way off base. In fact, I tell almost every single client in every single reading, I will say something like, please remember, you are in charge of your life. You get to decide what I'm about to tell you is relevant to you. And you get to throw away anything that doesn't work for you. 100% up to you. I am not the end all be all in this. You are. You're the one with the agency. So if I say something and it doesn't resonate, all good. That's all good. That's fine. I'm not going to have every single answer and I'm not going to be right about every single thing. Let's see what we can do here that's going to be useful. Now, what I've done is not just reminded that person that they have agency over their life and they're empowered when they leave my table instead of dependent on me in some way, which is always healthy, I think. But I've also given myself permission to not be perfect. And just doing that has given me the opportunity to give better and better and better readings because I'm no longer worried about trying to perform or always get it right. I'm certain I will get it wrong. There's going to be times I'm going to get it wrong. I'm not going to be focused enough. I'm going to pull the wrong message. So I always tell my clients to gut check everything I say. Always gut check it. If this does not feel true for you, it doesn't have to be true for you. Now, there's going to be people that are going to take that message and just hear what they want to hear. And that's okay. That's on them. They can do their own adulting. But I've told them I'm not like a guru. Okay. I'm just reading what I see in the cards and I'm human. So I may not get it right. And by doing that, I give myself permission to take chances in my readings, to say what first comes to mind, to not get in my own way intuitively. So yes, self-trust does come, but it comes with first just practicing, giving yourself permission to mess up, number one. And if it helps, be careful with like fixed, very, very fixed things. You don't have to say, you must break up with this guy. You can say, hey, look, what I'm seeing in the cards here shows that he might not be the best pick for you. You're going to have to really trust your gut in this situation. Feel it out. If he feels right for you, just go in with your eyes wide open. But the cards are indicating that this may be something you want to really be cautious about, right? That's a very different message than break up with this dude when you get home. You know what I mean? So if you're afraid of like messing up somebody's life or like redirecting them in the wrong way, that's a great way to, I try to always frame my readings in a way where I am empowering and hopefully teaching my clients to trust themselves too. And in doing that, I give myself opportunities to trust myself. And it becomes this beautiful cycle of give and take that is really, really helpful. Hi, Deborah. I hope you're enjoying it. Yay. Yeah, Priscilla says, I feel like when you're a beginner, you'll doubt yourself because you're just starting out in the tarot and there's so much noise from so many sources. Absolutely. So you just need to find what works for you and trusting yourself will come. Yep. Totally. Lay asks, oh wait, that was the bonding question. I did answer that. Okay, Tracy how is internal different than unconscious? This is in the Celtic cross and this is such a great question. So, where's my mini? Okay, let's look at it. The way that I will typically word it, I was going quick, so I didn't clarify, but let's just look at the positions. We have the heart of the issue. What is affecting that issue for good or for bad? Some people will see this as a blockage, but it can be helping or hindering. What is unconscious? A better way to word this, and the way I often word it when I'm sitting with a client, is what is something you may not be aware of that is affecting the situation? That's your unconscious. Conscious, what is something you're probably aware of, but let's talk about it, is the conscious position. Recent past, upcoming future. These are journeys just coming to a close. These are journeys just beginning. These don't have to be like way off in the future, right? This is near future. This is what's around the corner. What trajectory, what path are you headed down if you make no changes? Where if you're aiming a bow and arrow at a target, what target are you aiming at? That's kind of what this is, right? Where are you aiming? You can change your aim, right? But where are you aiming? And then when we come over here to the staff part of the cross, we have internal influences. This is how you specifically are impacting the situation right now. What is something that you are currently doing that is contributing to your situation in any possible way? So unconscious influences and internal are kind of cousins. They're both ways that you are impacting the situation, but you're not really aware of this. You are aware of this. These are actually both internal influences if we're going to break it down like that. This is a conscious internal influence. This is an unconscious internal influence. This is a general internal influence. Doesn't matter whether you're conscious of it or not. This is something that you are currently doing to contribute to your situation. Is it a bit redundant? Probably. Does it still feel helpful in my reading? Yeah. But if it doesn't, change it. Think of something that's missing from the Celtic cross that you really wish were in there and change it. This is the best way to make the Celtic cross a spread that's going to work for you. If you're like, I don't want to read past and future, I don't care about that. Maybe you make this a current challenge, and maybe you make this something that you can do to help your situation. Maybe you make this someone whose advice you should seek. I don't know. I'm making shit up. I don't know. But like, change it. Just write down your change, practice it for a while, see if you like it. And if you don't like it, change it again. And keep changing it until you get what works for you. Like I said, I can't find my original Celtic cross. We have internal influences, external influences, greatest hope and greatest fear, and key to the outcome. I turn them sideways so they'll fit, by the way. They're normally like this. I just don't have room on my table. Anyway, always give yourself permission to make a practice yours. There's nothing better you can do for yourself as a reader. Make it yours. Make it make sense to you. If it doesn't make sense to you, it's not going to be useful. If you find something confusing, change it until it's not confusing. And you can always revisit the original way if you want to, but you don't have to. And that's, I guess, the punchline. Okay. Maj asks, when you read with the Celtic cross, is it better to read as you draw card by card or wait until you have the whole spread at a glance? Ooh, okay. This is personal preference. When I first was reading the Celtic cross, I would lay everything down face down. Okay. We're going to talk Celtic cross. That's fine. So I would lay everything down face down. And then I'd go through them one by one. And I might have even done this when I did my video. I can't remember. Now, I found this really helpful when I was new to this spread because then I wasn't distracted by everything else. And I was looking at each individual position on its own. So what is the heart of the issue? We have the Three of Earth. There's an issue around working with others. This may be a work thing. This may be somewhere where we need to actually rely on other people in order to get something done. But something's going on that's more like collaborative or whatever. So what is getting in the way of that or what is helping that? And we have the Devil. This is a repeating pattern, usually a negative one. Whose negative pattern am I dealing with? Is it my negative pattern? Is it somebody else's? And you can go from there, right? Now, over time, I started laying the spread like this because when I read for other people, and I didn't get into this because this really complicates it, so only add this stuff if it makes sense to you to do. But I would always, when I read for clients, and if you've ever had a client like a professional reading for me, then you know this already. But what I would do is I would always say to my client, okay, I'm going to, and I'll tell them this while I'm shuffling, just so you know, when I lay the cards, I'm going to take a few seconds or a minute or two, and I'm going to maybe have a sip of my tea or my water, and I'm going to look at everything, and I'm going to take it in, and then I'm going to start talking. And just so you know, once I start talking, I'm pretty like boom, 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 boom. So if you need me to pause, feel free to tell me to pause. It's a common disclaimer I'll give. Because when I first lay the spread with all the cards visible, I'll take a beat and I'll take a look at what's on the table. What do I notice? Is there a lot of a particular element? We talked about this earlier with open reading. For example, in this spread that I have down here, can you see everything? Yeah, you can, I think, pretty much. Scooch everything up a little. I can see that I have air cards here, here, and here. That's 3 out of 10 cards are air. Okay. I have fire, water, earth. I have water. So I have 2 earth right here and here. I have water and fire, and I have 2 major arcana cards. So it's a little air dominant, which means that my client might be in their head a lot. So I can be aware of that. Okay, there's probably a lot of mental energy going on here, or there might be a lot of communication or a lot of talking. But otherwise, the elements are pretty balanced. I might also notice things like, is there a lot of major arcana? Because that's going to feel like a much richer, heavier meaning or reading, right? Is there an element missing? Do we have like a lot of fire and absolutely no water? So I'll look at things like that. I'll look for things like repeating numbers. Do I see a lot of 7s? For example, there's 2 7s here. Do I see an absence? I don't really look for absences of numbers because there's so many numbers that it doesn't really come up. But I usually look for absence of elements or dominant elements. I'll look for dominant majors or no majors. If there's no majors or only like 1, it's probably a situation that's pretty well in, like it's mutable. It's kind of changeable. It's in flux. It's not very fixed. If it's got a lot of majors, it feels bigger, richer, deeper, and more fixed. So I'll do all of that before I even start reading, but I can't do that if everything's not face up. So I do that little pre-check for patterns before I'll start speaking and reading, right? But you don't have to do that. And that's a lot. And that's overwhelming if you're new. I would say if you're new to the Celtic Cross or new to a bigger spread like this, and you're just getting comfortable with it, you might find it a lot easier to have everything face down and read them one at a time. I lay them all first. If I'm going to do that, I'll lay them all first face down and then start talking through them as I flip them. But it also works to like place it, talk about it, then place the next one, talk about it, then place the next one, talk about it. It can help you focus and not be so distracted. Like if you know the tower's coming up and you're the type of person that's going to go, oh God, what am I going to say about the tower? What am I going to say about the tower? What am I going to say about the tower? You're not going to be paying attention and you're going to have a hard time reading. So if you know you're that way, start with them face down or read them as you go so that you don't have that problem. But yeah, take care, Deborah. But I find that useful because I love looking at patterns and looking at layers and all that kind of stuff. And I do that in every reading pretty much. I do it even in like member readings when I'm just pulling 3 cards. I always quickly glance first. What do I see? And you'll know, because if you watch my readings, you'll notice I'm usually quiet for a couple moments. That's also a good practice, especially if you've warned your client you do that, because it gives you permission to slow down and take a breath. You don't feel like you immediately have to know the answer to everything. You can pause, take it in, think about what it might be telling you, and then start speaking. And that gives you so much more empowerment as a tarot reader. So yeah. Okay. I'm probably going to have to wrap it here in about 10. So I'll get through as many questions as I can in the next few minutes. If I don't get to you, don't worry. We're going to be doing another one of these Troubleshooting the Tarot streams in about another month. So I'm going to try to do them. Don't hold me to this, but I'm going to try to do them maybe on the second Saturday of every month. We'll see. Or every other month. We'll see how it goes. If y'all are finding value in this, if you're watching this back and really enjoying it, let me know in the comments. That will help me with content planning. But for now, I'm going to do a couple more and we'll see how we do on timing. But I'm going to try to wrap it at the 2.5-hour mark, which we're about 9 minutes. Okay. Pauline says, how did you get the courage to read for others? I'm comfortable reading for myself, but terrified to read for others. I feel nervous I'll give them an inaccurate reading. So I did speak quite a bit about how to handle the fear of being inaccurate. So rewatch that bit if that is helpful, because really that's a lot of it. I gave myself permission to be wrong. And I told my clients, I'm not going to get every answer right. And you will, if you're reading in public, you will get that person who comes in and sits at your table because they just want to test you to see if you can be accurate. I hate that shit. I am not your performing monkey, okay? But it does happen. And so the best thing you can do is say, I might not get it right. Hey, I'm going to read you what the cards tell me, and it may not resonate. And if it doesn't resonate, I want you to trust yourself. Trust yourself first before you trust me or any other reader, because you know yourself best. I'm going to tell you what I see, and hopefully that will be useful for you. And that's a great way to handle it if people are like communicating that they want you to be accurate. It also helps that I read in a way where I'm tapping into trajectory. Again, if you're holding a bow and arrow, I'm going to help you see where you're aiming, and maybe we can readjust that aim. But that doesn't mean that when you loose that arrow, you're going to hit that target. It just means that that's where you're aiming right now. So let's look at where you're aiming and is it good or bad for you? So when I think about like reading predictively, that's kind of what it looks like. It's more like trajectory reading for me. Now everybody's going to be different and everybody's going to see their tarot practice different. Some people feel very much that they are legit fortune telling, like reading the future. That's completely valid. It's just not my practice. So for me, it always feels like I'm tapping into like, where are you headed? And let's change it if it's not good. In fact, I actually built a whole trajectory spread that is designed to literally show you where you're aiming your arrow and how we can like adjust that aim to be more in alignment with what's in your best good. So that's a valid way to read. But regardless, what I mentioned earlier still stands. If you give yourself permission to be wrong and let your client know, look, I don't have all the answers. I'm going to tell you what the cards say. And if I say something that doesn't feel right for you, throw it out. Not going to offend me. All good. You know? Yeah. Oh, that's a good recommend. Priscilla says, I love the book. Will you give me a reading by Jenna Matlin for building confidence? Yeah. Awesome. You're allowed to just listen. Isn't it also really late where you are, Artie? Oh yeah, you're the one that just said it's gone midnight. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think letting yourself off the hook is actually the way to be a better reader. If you give yourself permission to be wrong, you're more likely to actually read more accurately because you're not going to get in your way. You're not going to doubt yourself before you say whatever is the first thing that pops in, which is probably a pretty strong intuitive hit. You'll give yourself permission to actually give messages that connect with people. So that's my thoughts on that. All right. Tracy says, how do you use Lenormand to find things? This is such a great question. Okay, let me grab a Lenormand deck real quick. It's actually pretty fun. I should have done this in my Lenormand series, which I didn't, but let me just grab a random Lenormand deck here. What's this one? Do I have one? Hello? I swear I do. Oh my gosh, I keep grabbing not Lenormand decks. Am I crazy? Oh, it's because I just filmed another video for my Lenormand series. Here's one. I found it. I found one. All right, here, I'll show you real quick. Okay. Let's do this together. This is actually, it's fun practice actually if you're trying to get to know Lenormand to do this. So let's say you lost your keys. Okay. This is so fun. You just take Lenormand pretty literal. Oh, let me put my face back up so y'all can see me. You just take yourself literal. You take your cards literal. Let me show you what I mean. Can't find my keys. Where are my keys right now? Okay, that jumped. Let's use that. Oh, okay. I have a table with a letter on it. Do I have a place that when I first come in from being out of the home, I drop my mail? Could it be around that spot? Did I just go to the post office? Could I have left them on the counter at the post office? Do you see what I mean? It's actually been surprisingly accurate when I've done this. Anchor? I don't know. I don't know what I would do for anchor. Any ideas in the chat? Scythe. I might look at my knife near my knife drawer. Where do I keep sharp, pointy things? Heart. I might think of my relationship. Did I hand them to Peggy? We have the moon. Where was I last night? Was that the last time I saw my keys? Are they outdoors somewhere? Do you see what I'm going with this? Like, it's literally just like that. If I pulled clover, I would think of outdoor spaces, grass, plants. Oh, Anchor dropped your keys in the toilet. Could be. It is actually really fun. I'm not going to say it's like always 100% accurate, but I've actually it just makes you think different. If the only thing this does is make you question where you put stuff, where you've been recently, what you've been doing, you know, and pulling 2-card combos can actually be more helpful. So for example, oh, I just mixed the fronts and backs of my cards. That's going to drive me crazy. Hold on. Let me just fix that. Whoops. Whoopsies. How did I do that? Distraction. That's how. Okay. So a 2-card combo might be even easier. So you pull 2 cards from your Lenormand deck, heart and stars. Well, that's not a very helpful combo. I'd be like, were Peggy and I walking outside with the doggies last night? Could I have dropped them when I did that? Cross and ship. Burden plus travel. Maybe I left him in my car. I don't know. So it's just playing around. But if all it does is make you brain differently so that you can consider places where you might have forgotten you've been or things you've forgotten you've done, then it's worked. You know, I don't know how much I do or don't believe that it's actually telling me where my stuff is and how much of it is just changing the way you think so that you're more likely to find your stuff. But that's the method that I use. How to gain self-trust as a beginner. We did talk about this, so I think we've pretty well covered this topic, but a lot of it is just give yourself permission and as much as possible, get out of your own way. Twirl with Tarot asks, in relation to cherry picking, how do you dip your toes into shadow work or inner child work, especially when you're carrying a lot of related trauma that's hard to visit or remember the source? This is a really challenging question because so much of doing this kind of work starts with you have to know yourself and know your limits. So 2 things. If it's something like, okay, there's multiple ways to approach this. Number 1, do you already have a support network? That could be a therapist, that could be a partner or a friend who holds your hand when you're like having an anxiety attack. You know, like who do you go to for support? And then you make sure you have that person lined up. You make sure you have that person lined up. So you're like, you know what, I'm going to try to work with a deck like Reclaim Oracle. And I'm going to try to pull one card in specific relation to doing some healing work because of past trauma. Now, you already know that you find that really difficult to revisit. So if you're going to intentionally go there, how can you support yourself in that work and give yourself an easy out? So you pull a card, you sit with it, you think about it, you start to feel yourself panicking, you feel your heart rate raise, you feel your breathing shallow, any of the things you use to tell that you're like not in a good place or you're triggered. And then you step back, you step away. You step away, you call your friend, you call your therapist. You're like, hey, really activated right now, really need some help regulating, or however it is that you do, right? It's a complex question. So again, a lot of it is going to be know yourself. I know what being triggered feels like in my body. So when I am triggered, I'm not going to say I always know that I'm triggered. But if I'm doing it, like if I'm in an argument with somebody and I get triggered, I don't always realize till after the fact. That's unfortunate, but it does happen. When it comes to an intentional healing work I'm doing, if I lay a card and I can feel myself reacting to that card in my body, then I know I'm triggered. And I know I might need to take a step back, turn that card over, or step away, come back to the reading another day. A lot of this is learning what activates your sympathetic nervous system and creates that stress response in your body, and then knowing how to listen to those cues and honor those cues. You might find it helpful when doing these topics. This is going to sound strange, but it is actually helpful. You might find it helpful to go, okay, I'm going to do a reading on trauma. Okay. And I'm going to pull a card. And what you do is you pull that card and you don't sit with it and think about it right that minute. You take a picture of it with your phone and you walk away. You put the card back in the deck. And a couple hours later, you might go to that picture on your phone and you go, let me look that up again. What was that? What was that going to be about? Sometimes that little bit of like energetic space or distance between yourself and the card pull can really help. In fact, I do that on my my regular pulls throughout the week. I will regularly, just because I don't have time, I'll pull the cards, I'll roll my dice, I'll take a picture, and then later I'll go back into my digital journal and I'll zoom in on the picture, highlight each number on my dice. I'll look up the dice because I still don't have that thing memorized. I'll look up the dice. Okay, what was that? What was that? What was that? And then I'll sit there and I'll unpack the reading, but I'll do it on my terms when I'm energetically feeling it, right? When it's like, okay, this feels like an okay time to do this. And then I'll do that. And then I'll sit with it and I'll get my messages and whatever. So some of it is like giving yourself that little bit of space. Sometimes not trying to like understand it all right that minute, but take a picture, maybe journal about it. Maybe read the guidebook and answer questions about it. If you're in a situation, in a temporary situation where your support network isn't around, but your current surroundings are triggering, I wouldn't go to cards in that moment, though. This is something to know, too. It's not always a good idea to go to your cards. Ask yourself this question. This is how you know if it's an okay time to go to your cards, okay? If you know, let's say you're really anxious about your pet, okay? Let's say your dog or your cat has been acting funny. You're really feeling anxious about it. You want to know if they're going to be okay. Do not pull a tarot card in that moment. Do not pull a tarot card in that moment, because if you know yourself well and you know that if you pull the Death card or the Ten of Swords in that moment, you're going to freak the hell out, that is not the time to pull a tarot card. Don't pull a tarot card in that moment. Or go to a deck that is specifically comforting. Example, if I'm anxious, hold on, I'm bringing you with me because I know you can hear me, but you just can't see me. I'll show you my favorite deck to have with me if I'm going through a time where I'm easily triggered or feeling anxious. It is this one. Oh, it would help if I have my camera on. This deck. This is the Heart Align Affirmations Oracle by Kimberly Sand. When I was going through a really, really tough time, actually multiple times, I've gone through really tough times, I carried this deck with me like my Linus blanket. And whenever I was feeling anxious or whatever, feeling triggered, I would pull a card from this deck, because this is a deck that makes me feel really seen. Now, you don't have to have this deck. It could be a different affirmation style deck. But the cards, you have nothing to prove. The current edition has darker text, by the way. I am in love with myself and I am on an adventure to explore, expand, and evolve. I continue to take inspired action towards my aspirations and goals. The writings were like, the words on here are always comforting. They always feel encouraging. And so if you are the type of person that you're like, I want to be able to pull a card when I'm anxious, when I'm nervous, when I'm triggered, then grab a deck that's going to hold your hand through that and not trigger you all over again. That is where affirmation decks, positive decks, nice washy decks are super, super handy. Is having a deck that you know is going to be kind to you. Okay, and I'm not trying to plug my stuff, I promise. But like in the Unicorn's Journey Tarot, one of the things I did in the guidebook is whatever card you pull, let's go to one that we know is negative, like the Five of Air. Oh my God, I thought I saw two eyes next to each other like there was a typo and I was about to freak out. It's fine, it's fine. There's no typo. Okay, anyways, in the Five of Air, we have an upright message and a reversed message. So, upright. Whether you've won or lost, it can feel like you've lost when someone didn't play fair. The one who defeats others only to satisfy their ego isn't a winner at all. To get back on track, if you're the winner, step out of your ego and reconnect with your empathy. If you've been defeated, dust yourself off and remember that playing fair and losing is better than surrendering your ethics to succeed. And so basically, not only where there's a difficult message, I have a message on how you can turn that around. So if the card is difficult when it's upright, then you'll see that to get back on track section in the upright. If the card is only negative in the reverse, like Page of Water, it's one thing to wear your heart on, this is the reverse message. It's one thing to wear your heart on your sleeve and another to open yourself up to hurt by having unrealistic expectations of others in your life. Letting people get close to you only to hurt you isn't going to help you find happiness. To get back on track, pay attention. When people show you who they are, believe them. But I also have a self-worth message on every card. So if all you need is an affirmation, then you go to that. Self-worth advice for the Five of Air. There will always be those who abuse their strength or power to take advantage of those they perceive as weaker. Don't let people like that make you feel weak or powerless. You are neither. This experience doesn't define you. You're stronger than you think. Done. So go to a deck you know is going to hold your hand through that moment, through that experience. That's kind of what I would say. So that's what I tried to build into my guidebook so that even if you're having a tough time, there's like something there that can like lift you and not just like leave you floundering. But not all decks do that. Not a lot of tarot decks give you the way to turn a situation around or the way to move through a situation in an empowered way. So I would say if you're possibly triggered, definitely go for a deck that's going to hold you and comfort you and give you the encouragement you need in that moment. And is not going to disempower you with a plain message like 10 of Swords, you've hit rock bottom, deal with it. Like that's not the time for a deck like that. There are times when a deck like that is perfect. But when you're tender, that's not the time. I had so much to say about that. Okay, there's only one more question that I still have on my list, so I'm just going to answer it. Lorna, I keep getting a lot of court cards day after day. I don't know what to make of that. It depends. Are you reading open? Are you reading with a question? Are you pulling too many cards? So court cards throw us because we don't always know what they're trying to tell us. What I did with Unlocking the Tarot is instead of giving you like a single fixed, this is a person in your life and this is what it means, I give you a spectrum of personality. So for example, here's the King of Cups. So I associate the King of Cups with Mr. Rogers, but his spectrum of personality is from approachable to complacent. That means that when he's at his best, he's approachable, he's kind, he's like, he or she is like this gentle person to be around. But when this person's at their worst, they can be really complacent, kind of oblivious, kind of like self-focused. So they can kind of like miss when people are being crappy around them and maybe not stand up for themselves, things like that, right? Or they can be a little bit out of balance emotionally, mentally. So instead of thinking of the court card as a person, pay attention to what its energy is. So if you want to explore how this is a situation, well, what is a situation in your life where being approachable or being complacent could be a factor? Do you know what I mean? So it's helpful to approach court cards as if they can be energy. I think we get hung up when they're always people. It is also helpful if you're somebody who reads with reversals. I can't remember where I first heard this, but come up with a system for what that means. Like maybe if a court card comes up upright, then it's an aspect of yourself. And if it comes out reversed, it's an external influence. Or, you know, I don't like that kind of, that doesn't work for me because I don't like having like a rigid structure. I like to be able to move more intuitively with my cards, but that might be helpful for you if you're finding yourself stumped because court cards keep coming up. what I would ask is, depending on if you're doing like a daily reading for like, what do I need to know today? And court cards keep coming up, then I would say they might be pointing to aspects of yourself that are having a factor in your day. Like if I constantly am pulling the Queen of Wands, right? I'm going to be like, okay, well, the Queen of Wands is kind of sassy and empowered, but can also be a little bit pushy. Am I being pushy lately? Like, or maybe I need to lean more into empowerment. Maybe that's the repeating message. So there's different ways you can play with it, but that is how I would kind of work with that if I'm seeing a repeat question. But mainly what I would say, mainly what I would say is when you start seeing repeat cards like that, give yourself, like, really pay attention to what you're asking as you're getting those repeating cards. And if you're not asking a question, start asking a question and then see how it comes out, see how it answers. Or maybe you're pulling too many cards. Sometimes I see people pull so many cards and then they get confused on what the message is. So that's something else. Yeah, I've never assigned any specific significance to a lot of court cards, except that, I shouldn't say never. I don't often. So you're seeing like, so if you pull like 6 cards, you said, I'm seeing more than 50% court card per reading with 3 to 6 cards. Again, it depends on the reading. Are you reading for yourself? And are you asking a question? Are you reading for other people? Because the context is going to change. Like if you're reading for other people, is it open or are they asking a question? Because for me, the court cards can operate like any other card, and they're not necessarily significant as far as like, I look to see if there's a dominance of majors. Sometimes if I'm regularly seeing a lot of people in readings, it's because there's a lot of fingers in the pot of the situation. For example, like let's say I'm doing a reading about work and I'm getting like half court cards. It's because everybody's contributing energy to the situation and they're all sort of muddying the waters. And that can make it hard to focus. Or if I'm only reading for myself and I see a lot of court cards, do I have a lot of internal voices, like people from my past that are like influencing me in the situation? But so much of how I would answer that question is going to depend on whether you're coming to your cards with a question or if it's a more general thing like a daily check-in. Then I'm going to interpret it different, right? So if you asked, what do I need to know about my relationship? And you pull like 3 out of 6 are court cards, then I'd be looking at which of these are aspects of myself that I need to look at in this relationship, which of these are aspects of the other person in the relationship, which of them are things we're both contributing energetically to the unit that is the relationship. There's so many questions you can ask. You said, okay, for self, usually asking a question. I've seen some cards so often that the question the next day is, what does this Queen of Wands want to tell me about theme of yesterday's reading? There is an exercise you can do. If you have a specifically repeating card, it's a Stalker card exercise. We put it, actually, Peggy and I came up with it, and we put it in our Sassy Dragons download that is available for people who buy the Sassy Dragons. But basically, it is essentially, let's say you're doing a reading and you have a Stalker card. So you have a card that keeps coming up. So you're laying out your Celtic cross. I'm going to just switch cameras again. So you're laying out your Celtic cross. And, well, I caught them mostly. They landed on the table at least. Okay. So you're laying out your Celtic cross or whatever spread. I'm just going to lay out some cards. And you're like, oh, dang it, there's that Queen of Water again. What the heck? She was in my last 3 readings. What is going on? So I stop, right? And I might pull the next 3 cards as clarifiers of what the Queen of Wands is, or Queen of Cups, sorry, is trying to tell me. So I'll be like, okay, why the heck do you keep showing up? The Fool. Oh, the Fool can be a little bit oblivious. I'm obviously missing the message. What is the message? I need to be more patient. Maybe I'm pulling cards too often. Maybe I'm not trusting my own wisdom and I'm leaning on my cards too much. The 7 of Pentacles or the 7 of Earth is a card of patience and needing to wait a little bit, needing to sit with something, not try to force the outcome. Okay, and how can I get you to stop showing up in every reading? Justice. Take some accountability for my role in whatever situation I'm in. That's like one place I could go with it, right? So you can, like you said, do a reading on why you're getting a Stalker card. But it sounds like you may potentially be paying too much attention to whether, try pretending they're not court cards. Try pretending that every single time you pull those cards, they're saying nothing different to you than a regular numbered minor arcana card, like a 7 of Wands. What would that card be telling you about your situation? Even if you've been seeing it 12 times a day. Like, what is it telling me about this question? So depending on the question, if you're saying what kind of day I'm going to have today and you have the Knight of Wands, you're probably going to have a pretty active day. We're going to feel like you need to go do stuff a lot. You're going to be running around a lot. Maybe you have a lot of errands. And then tomorrow you're like, what kind of day am I going to have? And you get the Knight of Wands again. Maybe you're going to have another errandy day. Or maybe today, that Knight of Wands is saying you're going to need to like dive into a situation head first. So it depends on the question. I don't have an easy answer, unfortunately, for that, because a lot of it is going to be really sitting with your readings. And I try not to worry too much if a card is repeating, or if, yeah, try the clarifiers, but yeah, try to ignore the fact that they're court cards. I feel like what happens with us when we see court cards, so many of us like glitch out, like me included, because court cards, we're sort of conditioned to see them as difficult, or as, like we always think they have to be people. They don't. They can just be an energy. If the Queen of Wands is sassy, maybe you're just going to have maybe there's going to be a lot of sassy energy in your day. People around you might be sassy. You might be feeling sassy. Maybe you're freaking, I'm speaking for myself. This is literally me projecting right now. But like maybe you're just hormonal. Like, because this happens to me all the time. I am just going to see everything through a sassy lens today. That's just going to be how it's going to be. I think we need to give ourselves permission sometimes to remember that court cards don't have to be people or personalities. And I think where we get ourselves tripped up is with things like significators. Like we joke in the community a lot, like I'm a Page of Quartz or a Page of Cups person. Like I see myself as a Page of Cups person. Technically, none of us are straight Page of Cups people. We're all a mix of all 16 court cards. It's just like what energy is dominant generally, what energy is dominant on any given day. Yeah, Fenneray says, I'm the opposite. I forget to consider the court cards as being people. I do too, actually, a lot of times. So yeah. Resources or recommendations to help with them. I have to. I'll tell you how I address the court cards in this book. Because I think I was really proud of this. Because I really put a lot of energy into the court cards chapter. So it starts on page 185 on my copy, and it's the 16 faces, the court cards. And I introduce them. We talk about the hierarchy, pages, knights, queens, kings, and kind of what they represent elementally, energetically. And then I give you things to try so you can start to build your own association with that hierarchy and like what each one means and like what it could mean when it's in a reading. I talk about gender. I talk about the sliding scale of personality. This is what I'm really proud of. So I don't see the court card as a fixed personality, but as a spectrum of personality. And personality can be applied to a situation or a person. Situations have personalities, right? Have you ever had a really busy day? You're assigning a personality. Or like an aggressive day. Just things are just constantly coming at you. That's a personality. It's an energy. So I give a spectrum. And then I do two things. It's kind of like a 1-2 punch, right? One of them is exploring that spectrum of personality, that spectrum of energy. What does it look like at its most positive? What does it look like as kind of negative? And it can be anywhere in between. It can slide between. It's a sliding scale. And then I personally go out of my way once I understand that to assign it to a fictional person, a character, not a real life person. That's what I do. Not a real life person, but like a cartoon character or a character from a favorite TV show. Now that exercise is helpful to some and not to others. The spectrum of personality is where I really am super proud because I know that that's effective. The personality where you assign it a pop culture reference or like a fictional reference, I find that helpful because it helps me get a more complete picture of what that looks like. Like my page of, oh my gosh, is it Wands or Swords? I get the two mixed up every single time. I was gonna say I've got Alice and I've got Anne of Green Gables. And I'm pretty sure Anne of Green Gables is my page of Wands and Alice is my page of Swords. But I literally get them mixed up in my brain. And I was so proud of making the connection. I've got them written on my I'm gonna look now. I'm gonna cheat my own stuff because this is how bad my memory is. Yeah, Page of Swords, I have Curious and Nosy. This has got to be Alice. Alice, yeah. Alice is my Page of Swords. And then Anne from Anne of Green Gables is my Page of Wands. She's somebody who's constantly getting into trouble. She just has to try everything. She wants to be inspired. Everything is beautiful and wondrous and magical. And that helps me to kind of imagine the energy of that card and then apply it to various situations. That is, again, not going to be helpful to everybody, but it was helpful to me. I know I said I was going to get off of here at 2.5 and it's almost 3 hours now. I have no self-control. What can I say? But thank you all for hanging out with me. We will do this again. Just a reminder, Badass Unicorns can ask your questions in advance and we'll cover them in the beginning so they don't get lost in the weeds. But in general, I'll try to come on here more often and do these. And I'm going to see if we can clip some of the answers out for little individual videos so that they're easier to rewatch later. for people on the channel because very few people are going to want to come on and rewatch a 3-hour live stream. But props to those of you who do. I appreciate you so, so much. But thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for bringing your questions and curiosities and giving me so many things to like babble at you about, because that's like the best thing. And we will do this again very, very soon. In the meantime, thank you so, so much. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Until next time, may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye.